My name is Mishka Shabali. I'm sitting here with a dude named Ken Rideout. I guess if people are hearing this, the book is out.
It's out.
How do you feel?
Excited, anxious, nervous, insecure, at the same time confident, and all the things that go with a race.
It sounds like expecting a baby.
Yeah.
Ken, it's a hell of a book. And
Thank you, brother.
I mean, I hope one of the feelings that you have is pride. You really told an incredible story here.
No, thank you, brother. And for everyone listening, Mishka is my editor on the book and basically held my hand through the writing of this. And really, without Mishka, I don't think the book would be what it is. There's a real art and skill to getting this story out of someone, and it's not something that I could have done on as a solo project. It just, we all fall in love kind of with our own stories, good and bad, right? You tend to hold on to the negative things down. At least for me, I tend to make the negatives bigger than they are and downplay the wins and the successes that I've had. And it's what kind of keeps me grounded, but it all stems from my own insecurities, right? I should be able to enjoy my wins more than I do and not beat myself up over the mistakes that I've made, but I do. And that's part of my DNA and probably what led to the book. And kudos to you for being able to capture the story and get it told in a way that when I meet even strangers who don't really know me, the first thing that everyone says is, this book is really in your voice. And I'm like, you don't even fucking know me. What are you talking about? And they're like, I've watched enough of your interviews and seen you on social media to know that this book sounds like you're talking to me. And I was like, that's Mishka.
Well, Ken, you have a very specific voice, and it's great to hear that. I mean, that was one of the things that was super important. From the first time I met you, I was like, this is the guy, and I felt we had to be true to that. Your story is incredibly touching, and you're a great person, and I cared about you from the beginning of our friendship, and dude, it's so hard to read about the abuse and neglect that you endured as a child. Where are you with your mom, your dad, Barney, those people from your early childhood?
Yeah, unfortunately, Barney died, but I hope it comes across in the book. Barney was a sweet guy when he was himself. He was he was handicapped and had a lot of insecurities, obviously, which probably led to his heroin addiction, but he was a pretty nice guy. But like any junkie, when he was strung out and on a rampage, you didn't want to be near him. Not as a kid, because I was an easy target. And he wasn't a bully, but he could be a dick when he was in the wrong state of mind. So yeah, Barney's dead. My grandmother unfortunately passed away a year or two ago. Very sad. And my dad's in Boston. He's got an awesome wife. My wife is very close with them. My father's wife is a PhD nurse practitioner, really accomplished, intellectual, super sweet, just the kindest person in the world. And my mom lives in Boston, but I don't really speak to her. She's dealing with her own stuff, so I just keep everything at a healthy distance.
People talk a lot about forgiveness. I think we fetishize forgiveness, but also on a business end, if you forgive an account, you close that account.
That's exactly right. And the other thing I'll say is my two brothers, my younger brother is still struggling with addiction, wallowing around in Boston. I think my two brothers live together in my grandmother's old condo, which is crazy to think about because they fight like cats and dogs, fist fight. And my brother Keith, who's a year younger, it's funny when before they published the description of the book on Amazon, I guess, the editors at Simon & Schuster called me and said, your brother was definitely in jail, right? Because we don't see a record of it. I'm like, yeah. But then I started questioning my own sanity. I'm like, he was in jail, right? So anyway, I sent him a message on Facebook. Sometimes he'll send me a DM on Facebook. And our relationship is cordial. We just don't really talk now. But I sent him a message. Hey, what's your number? And then I called him. No, I said, what years were you in Billerica, the prison? And also, what's your cell number? Because I was going to call him. He goes, I was in Billerica 3 times. Here's the dates. And my cell the first time was J11. And I was like, no, you fucking idiot. What's your cell phone number? Dead serious.
The other cell.
So then I called him and he's like, no, I was in this place 2 years. I went here most recently. And then he's like, in 22, I was like, you were in jail in 22? And he's like, yeah. I said, for what? He's like, oh, It was bullshit. Some kidnapping charge. Had a fight with my girlfriend, and I was like, kidnapping can be you have a fight with someone and you like hold them in the house against their will, and it's like you kidnapped them. And but yeah. So anyway, that's where my two brothers are in Boston, being roommates.
Whenever I think about you and Keith, I always try and think about that moment getting the dirt bike on Christmas morning.
Oh, yeah.
And you guys just out in the field just tearing it up.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful scene. Did you have any other moments of connection like that with you and Keith in your childhood of just, because I feel like you guys are like oil and water from the beginning, but you are blood.
Yeah. No, we had nice moments here and there. It really like went to shit when he started like using heroin in high school and like really doing shit that was off-putting to me. Cause I was like, as a young guy in that like very intimidating, aggressive environment, I'm doing everything I can to stay under the radar. Or if I'm on the radar, I want it to be for something positive, not my brother getting in a fist fight with the effing principal of the high school. You know what I mean? Or like, cursing at girl. Like it was just a chaos personified. He was just a ball of chaos. And I don't even think he meant it. He just couldn't control his emotions. So if the teachers told him to do something, he would just like fly off the handle, not like a tough guy, like an irrational person. But when I was talking to him asking him about the dates of the prison, I said, "Oh yeah, Terry, who is my mother." I said, "Terry catches a lot of shrapnel in the book." He's like, "What about me? Did I get murdered?" I go, "Nah, not really. You were kind of a sympathetic character. I think in the long run, it was like, more sad than anything." And then I started getting choked up talking to him. And then I said, "Who really gets dragged is that piece of shit, Pandolfo." And he's like, I would love to bump into that guy and beat the shit out of him. And he goes, "You don't have to worry about it. Number one, I already gave him a beating. And number two, he's dead."
Okay, so you guys are in the same plot.
Yes. He said, "I saw him coming out of a liquor store and I beat the shit out of him." And he was like begging for mercy. And I was like, good, he was a bully.
I mean, to look at your life and Keith's life, you're the exception, right? It's not that he disappointed people or let people down. He did the best that he could with the tools that he had at that time. What's remarkable is that you didn't wind up having, just living in the street or, or being dead by now. You guys just had such a tough lot. Do you ever feel, when you started to become a parent, were you paranoid that you were going to scar your kids the same way that you and Keith had been scarred?
No, I knew I wasn't. I knew I was never going to do that. But yeah, I mean, I had concerns about everything, but I look at it like the same way I think about racing and everything else. Like when I thought about having children, of course I wanted to have the life I have now. I have everything that I've ever wanted. I'm lucky. Like unlike so many really wealthy people, I have enough. Like I have everything that I ever dreamed of. Would I like more money? Of course I would. But do I need it? No. I mean, it would be nice. I'd love to fly private to go on vacation. We don't do that, but I would love it. But I approached my life the way I do, like racing is the perfect analogy because I didn't start running to win a marathon. It was so foreign to me. I would have thought if I can even get in the top 3 of my age group at a small local race, I was super happy. And everything in my life has been like that. It's like I didn't start working in finance thinking that I would run business development at a big institution, at a big private equity style firm, and then I would run my own placement agency and be my own entity. I never. But I approached everything one step at a time. What's the next progressive step? It's like when I did triathlon, I was like, what's the best triathlon? The Ironman in Hawaii? I didn't know anything about it. I was like, okay, well, if that's the best triathlon, I'm going to do that one. And maybe this all stems from my childhood and from insecurity and trying to like somehow make my dad proud, which isn't something that I would ever consciously think to do. But I would be naive if I didn't think that had to plant a seed somewhere because I never was satisfied with being mediocre at running, at finance, and especially at parenting. So when you look at the finished product, it's very easy to gloss over the process that it's taken to get to this point and say, you've done this, you did it all. When I was in the throes of my addiction as an average finance guy in my mid to late 30s, I was like, I've fucked my whole life up. I'm a loser. And that's what I hope that people listening or reading the book take away from this is whatever you think is true. If you think you're too old, then you are. Fucking give up. But if you don't think you're too old, I worked with a guy not with him, but my firm that I worked at the Palisades Group, worked with a placement agent prior to me getting there who was like 70 years old. And at 70 years old, he had introduced them to hundreds of millions of dollars. And in his 70s, he went on a run of making like $5 to $10 million a year. All that to say, like, as long as you're still in the fight with the right attitude, it might sound corny or cliche to say it's not over until you win, but if you really believe that, what do you care about anyone else's opinion? Your opinion of you is the only one that matters. And when I look at my own life, I just think, until I'm dead, I might as well just keep throwing punches, because if one lands and you score a big knockout, you're like, holy shit, I did that. Like the book. If you told me 10 years ago I'm going to write a book and people are going to actually buy it and read it and care about it, I would have said you're fucking crazy. I would pay any amount to have that place in the world. And then when it happens, one thing I'm guilty of is not taking a minute to appreciate it. All I can think is like, is it a bestseller? Is it #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list? And then I'm like, that becomes my new focus. And again, be careful what you wish for, because people will be like, I want to have what you have. Do you? It can be a blessing and a curse. It's like I heard Elon Musk say recently, like people look at him and all his money and they're like, I want to be Elon Musk. And he's like, you don't want to be me. And to a certain extent, I wouldn't say you don't want to be, no one should want to be anyone else. But I would say this mentality and these accomplishments don't come without some baggage and the mindset that it took me to get there. I wish I could have all the answers and say, nope, this is how I did it, and I'm the happiest person in the world, and on Sunday I go to church and everything is good and I'm like rainbows and butterflies. But it's not. It's like, you know, like anyone, I'm going through ups and downs, and when it's good, and when it's bad, it's not good.
Yep.
Hey guys, want to talk to you quickly about Ketone IQ, my favorite energy source. Ketone IQ, if you don't know, is a fast-acting source of energy. I prefer it with the caffeine. It's like a double whammy. It provides fast-acting energy, but doesn't give you the same crash like caffeine or the jitters. This stuff is used by the majority of the pro peloton at the Tour of France. And listen, if it didn't work and wasn't backed by science, those guys wouldn't use it. I've been loving this stuff. I've been taking it for the last couple of years. I'm running like 70 to 80 miles a week at 54 years old, and every single one of my runs is fueled by Ketone IQ. Give them a shot. Go to ketone.com. Use the promo code Rideout to save some money. Let me know what you think. I think you're going to love it. Boom.
Let's move on to chapter 2.
Let's do this.
So there's Jeff, the camp counselor, Tony, your trainer, Norman Kennedy, Brendan Daly, like
Spooky Bailey.
You have all these angels in your life, and so many of them are men.
Yeah.
And they like came through for you in ways that your family didn't. And it you know, reading this, it's been particularly in chapter 2, I felt that like the love, support, acceptance a child would get from their family, you got in competition.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk specifically first about Brendan Daly, who's one of my like dearest friends. I love him like a brother. I mean, that guy, the fact that he was willing to like go into a cell and have a fucking steel cage match with an inmate in my stead was like moving to me. But it also reminded me, you're a man. Get in there and behave like a man. There's times in your life where you can be scared, lots of times. And to try to deny being scared is a fool's errand. What you really have to do is recognize, okay, I'm scared, but he's scared too. Everyone's scared doing things that are challenging. That doesn't mean you don't do them. You just go in and do it scared. And if you can learn how to do things in your life while you're scared, you'll be shocked at the results. I'm scared every time I sign up for anything. If I do the fucking turkey trot in my local town, I'm nervous because I know the local dads want to beat me and one of them might be a ringer. And I'm like, I know, I'm not stupid. I know that I have a target on my back. So I'm like, whether it's the Chicago Marathon and the World Championships or the turkey trot, the feeling that I have is the same exact feeling. It's kind of like if fear or I usually describe it as trauma. If trauma is a room, the most traumatic thing that ever happened to you filled the room. Whether you were sexually assaulted or bullied by a classmate, your trauma response system knows that the room for trauma is filled. And if you don't figure out a way to cope with that, it's going to haunt you for a long time. And that's kind of how I think about fear, is like whether my son is in fear of getting hit by a fastball in Little League or in fear of getting kidnapped on a subway, or pick a topic. fear is fear. So you have to get comfortable dealing with the fear. And that's, if anything, one thing that I have done really well. And having the guys that you mentioned from this chapter in my life, definitely, they all taught me different lessons about fear. And it's funny because when Brendan and I first started working together, I'm playing football at Framingham State and he's playing hockey at like Fitchburg State. So another like state school, and they're both like blue collar schools. Okay. So I'm at Framingham and we're having a party, and it's like at this dumpy house, like a typical like state school college party. Kegs, everything, like it's, disgusting. The floor is filthy, but it's like everyone's having fun. And Brendan, who we called Spooky, he was a musician. He had a band called the Spooky Daily Pride. Really artistic kid. But he comes there with some of his buddies, and I'm like, oh, Spook, what's up? And we're talking. This was my worst nightmare all the time, when I had friends that would come to school, and I had friends at school, and my friends from elsewhere, my friends from school would fight. Yeah. And I'd be like, dude. But ultimately, like, my friends from school were friends from school. My friends from home and like Spooky were like my people. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be alienated from school because I'll kill someone to help my friends. And Brent gets in a fight with a kid on the football team who's really tough. And they're like kind of squared off, and Brendan headbutts him and like breaks his nose and drops him. And like, it was chaos. But he got in a fight a week or two later at his own school, and a kid at Fitchburg State bit the tip of his nose completely off. So literally had that. Oh, dude, I'm talking gone. He was traumatized. He had to have reconstructive surgery. I mean, it was not good. He was a savage, though.
That gives us like that much more context about what your life was like as a kid.
Perfectly normal, all those stories to like, for those things to happen. And I'm not saying that to say I sound like a tough guy. I'm not a tough guy. I'm just a guy who was like exposed to a lot of shit. Those were the people that were my peers.
Yeah. Having gotten stomped in the first 45 minutes of a shift I worked as a night manager, your story about getting your nose broken, like in the opening of a shift at the prison, I felt for you. What's it like to work the rest of your shift with a broken nose?
Oh, no. I didn't have to stay the whole shift. I was a bloody mess. I went to the infirmary and then went home. But my nose had been broken like, at this point, 3 or 4 times. Another time I was in Boston with all of my Boston friends. We were at a Harvard bar, and we would go to Harvard Square and like end up getting in fights with like smart kids all the time. And there was a huge melee, and one of my friends standing in front of me, Steve Marshall, we called him Elfie, tall, skinny kid. And I'm like, Elfie, and I grabbed his shoulder, and he turned right around and cold cocked me right in the nose. Boom, rolled my nose. 2 huge black eyes instantly, and I was like, damn you. And then we got out of there. But yeah, that was my cocaine era, like late in college, right when I got out of college, was like a lot of time with my friends in bars in downtown Boston.
See, coke was never my favorite drug, and it's been a long time since I've done it. But when I read honk some stripes with donkey dust, I'm like, dude, I missed my fucking window. Yeah. I want to honk some stripes with donkey dust. It's like, that's the thing about being a stupid kid, is that like, if it doesn't kill you, it makes for great stories.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, listen, I could have done without some of the emotional damage that came with abusing drugs, but I would be lying if I didn't say some of those times in my like early 20s were like fun and chaotic and just like very living life in the fast lane, I guess, and very dangerously.
And right on the heels of that, like guys, this is my last night doing coke.
Oh, every night.
Like living that night over and over again and again, like as a sober addict and alcoholic, I was like, oh man, I know that so well.
Yeah.
Just that, that feeling where you're like stuck in a loop.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is my friends would like all like laugh about it every time, because anytime the sun would start to come up, I would just look at them and be like, look at you fucking losers. I can't believe you did this to me again. Kind of in jest, and they'd all start laughing and be like, you knew this was coming. And I was like, I know, damn you.
All right, let's move on to chapter 3. Perks of the job. And at this point in your life, in your career, I feel like you're really grappling with the death of a dream of greatness. That you had so much pinned on a career in the NHL, and then when that evaporated, it really seemed like you're just flailing around trying to figure out who you are, where you fit in.
I felt like totally unprepared for life. I felt like I didn't have any like real mentor or role model. Like And again, I say that I hope it doesn't come across like victim mentality. I don't feel like a victim. It's just a fact. I didn't have like, my dad was like, he did the best he could, but he was not like, hey, prepare, like, what are you going to do for work? It was kind of like, yeah, you'll figure it out. And I was like left to my own devices, which is fine. It is what it is. I just didn't feel like I had adult skills at that point. And I was rudderless. And prior to that feeling of kind of lost at sea, I was, very confident in like, optimistic about my future. And when the reality of life kind of sunk in, it kind of knocked me off kilter for a while. And it took me a little while to figure things out, just like everything. Just like being a dad, I wasn't really good at the beginning, but I'm getting better.
My parents were a big fan of Figure It Out too. And it's like we proved them right by doing it.
Yeah.
But also like, I'm 49. I still want somebody to come in and be like, first you do this and then you
Of course.
to lead the way,
We all do.
But I think that so many times in this chapter we see, and I mean throughout your life, we see you turning obstacles into opportunities.
Yeah, I always, looking back, it's easy to see it that way. But when those obstacles popped up, I was like, I'm dead. Like the dream is over. Like I'm going to be back home working in the prison full time. Like I was so close to having to like pull the ripcord so many times. Not that I ever considered doing it, but I was like, I can't be homeless. Like, what am I going to do?
Also, was there a ripcord? I feel like you had no safety net.
I could always go live with my grandmother.
Yeah.
But no, like that, those first few years in New York were precarious. The first year, really, because I very quickly started making money. But even when I took the pharmaceutical job when I moved to New York, like I knew that my take-home pay wouldn't cover all the bills. I knew I was operating at a deficit right from the jump, which is crazy to think about now. Like I don't know what I was thinking, but I just had blind confidence that I'd figure it out.
The lime green suit. I'm heartbroken that we couldn't find a picture to put in the book of you rocking your lime green suit.
I'm probably making it seem more lime than it was. It was a green suit and it definitely had like a lime tint. It was like something you might see in like a magazine, an editorial like photo shoot, not necessarily like in a boardroom. But I didn't know what I didn't know. I thought it was like the coolest thing. I had a floral tie that might have been appropriate for like a Sunday afternoon wedding. I looked fucking crazy. I had my Rockport wingtip walking shoes with the rubber sole. I mean, I looked like a maniac, and I had a brown belt.
In my head, you just look like Jim Carrey in The Mask.
Yeah, kind of. I definitely looked crazy.
Talk about the Vertical Club. I feel like there's more stories there that we didn't cover in the book.
Do you remember in like the mid-'90s, late 90s in New York City, there was a girl called Robin Bird?
Yes.
She had like a show on NPR, and it was kind of like a strip show. I don't know if she got topless on it, but I feel like she did. Anyway, she was like a nightlife character in New York City and like very well known. So she worked out there. She was an older woman with like big boobs, and I'm pretty sure she got topless on the show. But if she didn't, there were other people topless, and it was on like public access TV in New York.
No, I mean, I think anybody in New York at that time knows Robin Bird.
Yeah.
Remembers that show.
So she worked out there, and it was literally like holdovers from the 80s. So there were all neon signs. I mean, it was a nice gym, but it was like 6 stories and like it had a lot of stuff going on there. But the crowd in there was like lots of string tank tops on the guys, like male model type dudes, like just really eclectic, but then also like very normal, like professional people in there. And it was big. It was busy. It was just, it was like, again, like anything else. I was like, what's the best gym here in this area? And they were like, the Vertical Club's the best. And I was like, all right, I can't afford it, but I'm going.
I mean, your book reads like a movie, but I feel like it would be worth it just for the scenes at the Vertical Club.
Oh my God, there's some great stories that I can't share with people here. It's just, my wife will kill me.
At this point in your life, there's this weird thing that's happening where you're continually investing in yourself and betting on yourself and also hating yourself and doubting yourself and just, feeling like such a misfit. How does that all function together? I mean, don't those things negate each other?
The hating part didn't start until I like fell into the addiction, which came in around 2000. So from, I don't know, I think I moved to New York in 96. So like for the first 3 years or so in New York, I wasn't really strung out on drugs. I was actually doing pretty good because when I moved to New York initially, I stopped drinking because I knew if I didn't drink, I wouldn't do coke. And I now had a job. Like, I couldn't not get up and go somewhere in the morning. And I was like, coke didn't mix well with me. If I had stayed up all night doing coke, I would hide under my bed for a week.
Yeah.
Like, I would be so depressed. I'd be like, I can't look at anyone. I'm gross. I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I worked myself into a really good position, and then I sabotaged myself by dabbling in opioids and liking them too much. But again, to your earlier point, it's like every time I was hit with like a very challenging obstacle, in hindsight, it ended up becoming like the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. But when it's happening, it was not fun, and I didn't look at it as as like an opportunity at the time. I was like, I'm fucked. Like, I have to figure this out, and it was a survival moves. And at the same time, the things that I thought were great and were everything that I wanted, like making money, turned out to be like genuinely a non-event. Yeah, sure, it was fun to blow a lot of money. It was great. But I mean, looking back now, I'm like, I made so much money and wasted it. I'm an idiot. The discomfort or the fraud complex, imposter syndrome, the fear that having money and losing it created in me led in part to my addiction. So I know it sounds crazy, but the money wasn't the answer. The money created more money, more problems. It created problems. But don't get me wrong. I want to make money. I wanted to make money. I don't regret making money, but I wasn't prepared to deal with it. I was a poor kid who was handed too much money and didn't know what the F he was doing. And it's my own fault. Again, not a victim. I fucked the whole thing up, but made for a good story.
I know, that's the important thing. So I still remember my first drunk, and I remember this like moment of clarity that I was like, this is who I am. This is what I'll be. Like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this every day. This is like my new identity.
Yeah.
Tell me about taking Percocet for that first time. And,
No, I definitely didn't think that this is my identity and I'm going to do this all the time. Like, there was definitely a part of me that always knew like taking drugs isn't the answer. Like, what the heck are you doing? But they made me feel so good, and I didn't understand the dangers of addiction. So in a lot of ways, I was like blindly naive and happy to continue to like lie to myself, which is what you do. And it's what I did for, even when I was in the throes of addiction trying to get off the drugs, I kept telling myself like, next week, that's it. I had one drug dealer up in Washington Heights where I would buy like 20, 30 Percocets every day, every other day. And they would be like, it was an older woman. She'd be like, why don't you just buy like a few hundred? I'm like, no. Because every time I buy them, I'm like, this is it. This is the last time. And I'd be there like 4 times in a week. It was insanity. I would like call her from everywhere in the city, like, hey, take the subway down here. And to her, I was probably paying like 3 times more than anyone in Washington Heights would pay. So she'd come anyway. She couldn't really speak English. So it was crazy. She would have been a great character in the book, but I wouldn't, but I want to protect her identity.
Yeah. We have an abundance of great characters in this book. Let's move on to chapter 4, Fully Loaded. Dude, reading your description of the first time being dope sick, again, it just like struck a chord of terror in me, because I've been through that, and it's just horrible. It's horrifying. Do you feel like you have lasting trauma from not just from the years of addiction, but the withdrawal? It's so soul crushing.
Yeah. No, I look at it now like, if someone asks me, well, what's your proudest achievement? It's definitely getting sober. It's kind of like, look at what I did. Like, okay, I made all these mistakes. I can't change that. But like, I look at that and I'm like, yeah, I'm proud of that. I was able to get off those things and like power through this, because so many people don't, and they end up either addicted for life or dead. And like so many of my friends that are characters in the book, like 2 of my closest, like 5 friends are dead from overdoses.
Yeah.
Like, well, when fentanyls came around, it kind of like changed the rules for everyone. But yeah, withdrawals, I wouldn't wish on anyone. This is not for, if you're a pussy, don't mess with drugs. Because if you can't handle, like, you don't know what you're signing up for when you sign up for withdrawal. Like, when you sign up for that kind of addiction, the withdrawals you're going through, one way or another, even medically assisted, like, you're going to have to walk through hell. And if you're not fucking comfortable with fire, don't play with drugs. It's horrible.
I think, us being kids and seeing the anti-drug messaging and stuff like that, it's like, oh no, I would never be some like, pasty, sweaty junkie. But one of the things that's so irresistible about drugs is, at first, They're your medicine.
Yeah.
They're fixing a problem.
You should think of it as medicine when you're an addict. That's why they say, like, oh, I got to get well. I got to get a fix. Like, it makes sense because you're sick. And if you can get drugs, you'll be well. I mean, it's like I think of that show, Get Him to the Greek, when, what's his name? Russell Brand is yelling at, is it Jonah Hill? And he's like, you're going to get me that heroin. You're going to help me get well. I'm like, oh, I know that feeling. I never did heroin, but of knowing like, dude, I will like, if I have to rob this pharmacy, I'm getting those drugs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that I've ever done any, I've never like committed any crimes other than buying illicit drugs, but I've never robbed anyone.
You know, and at this time when you're in London, there's this weird thing happening of like, you know, one of the things that's so deadly about speedballs is that there's an upper and a downer in there. And your life is full of uppers and downers where you're like killing it professionally and then just going off the rails.
Yeah. Speedball, if you don't know, is coke and heroin. And I'm sure that I did coke and Percocets many times, but and once I found opioids, I very rarely did coke. But yeah, my life was going a million miles an hour. I would be strung out on the pills all the time. But my answer for anything was just take some more pills. Yeah. Feeling terrible, let me just take some more pills. And the thing that sucks about them is, and this is like, again, I hope that people who are considering taking drugs or involved with drugs hear this and recognize that this is not, this was not fun. But when you artificially like spike your dopamine and all these pleasure centers in your brain artificially, like on demand, that's not how your brain is supposed to function. You're not supposed to just like get to push a button and feel euphoria. You typically have to do something to create that, meaning accomplish something, be sitting on a beach in like, you know, a vacation spot to get that, oh, this is what I was waiting for. When you have destroyed your pleasure center receptors with artificial spikes for years, when you are sober and you go on that beach and you're like on that vacation, you're walking on the beach with your wife or partner or whatever, and you feel that like euphoria of like, this is awesome. You still kind of know that that's what you're supposed to be feeling, but I would be lying if I didn't say the chemical sensation that you feel in your brain is never the same. And it's taken, I don't want to say never to the people who are considering getting sober, but you're doing long-term damage that is going to be very difficult to undo.
When I got sober, a lot of people were like, oh, you know, you were addicted to alcohol and now you're addicted to running. And I always tell them it's the opposite, just because of the payment structure. Like if you go out and hammer 10 miles, hopefully you feel good. You know, you feel pain good, and then you feel good afterwards. And it's the opposite with drugs and alcohol where you're like financing it. So you can punt it to the next day, maybe the next week, the next month, the next year, but eventually that shit comes due,
of course,
with all the fees, you know?
Yeah, and I would say the same thing for myself. When people say I'm addicted to running, I'd say, yeah, unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to describe it, yes, there's definitely an element of that. Like I said earlier, I don't have all the answers. Don't wish to be like me. However, one of my addictions, drugs, had me contemplating suicide, and the other addiction has me sitting here talking to you about the book that we just wrote together. So
pick your poison. Right?
Exactly. I'm doing, like I said, this is a survival story. I'm like surviving one event to the next and trying to enjoy the journey.
Yeah. As a car guy, I would be remiss in not mentioning the Toyota Tercel with the baloney skin tires.
Oh my God. What a piece of crap. I think it was my stepfather's car that he like drove into the ground commuting to some like dead end job for years. And I was on a date one time driving with a girl on Route 93 heading in from Stoneham into downtown Boston, going to like the North End for dinner with this girl. And the shifter, when you put it into fifth gear, like up and to the right, if I just left it there like normal, it would occasionally pop out of gear and all the gears in the gearbox would start grinding like crazy loud. Like it sounded like the engine was going to fall out on the highway. So I had a little rubber bungee cord that I would hook like to the dashboard, wrap it around the shifter once it was in fifth gear, and then clip it to the other side. So it was like it was bungeed into gear. So obviously if there was an emergency, I'd step on the clutch and the brake and, you know, I could deal with the shifter in a minute. But every time I had to shift in and out of fifth gear, I had to unbungee it. But when the girl got in, I'm like, I got to get rid of this fucking bungee cord. I can't have a bungee cord on the car's already a piece of shit. And sure enough, we get going. And I forget, driving the thing. The girl like almost jumped out of the seat. I was mortified.
This also sounds like if you ever come to Phoenix, this also sounds suspiciously like the car I would pick you up from the airport in.
No, I'll take an Uber. I don't even need to see what you're driving to know I'll take an Uber. Hey guys, want to tell you quickly about Row Nutrition's NAD+, one of the greatest energy sources I've ever tried. NAD+, if you don't know, is the energy source for mitochondria. Mitochondria has been called the fuel cells of the body, so their function is critically important, and without NAD+, nothing happens. Prior to discovering Row Nutrition's liposomal NAD+, I only knew of NAD+ to be delivered via injection, and honestly, that's a bit of a pain in the neck and cost prohibitive. Row Nutrition has taken the stress out of the delivery system and made it cost effective. This stuff is awesome. I've been taking it for over a year. I'm running about 70 to 80 miles a week at 54 years old. And yeah, NAD Plus keeps me going. I take it every single day, first thing in the morning. Highly recommend it. Go to rownutrition.com. Use the promo code Rideout to save some money. Again, rownutrition.com. Use the promo code Rideout. Boom.
You know, your life in London, it seems really plush and really glamorous, but you seem so disconnected from any sort of like grounding influence. And, you know, then there's that call with your mom where she hits you up for money after having, you know, turned you down for a ride. And dude, like reading those passages, the pain is still like, I'm like, what the fuck, Mom? How could you do this to me?
I know some people are going to read that stuff about her not coming to get me at school when she could have and think like, what a minor thing. And it was. But when it was like the straw that broke the camel's back, there was a lot of shit like that. Like my dad, they had an agreement to pay, my mom and dad had an agreement to pay half each. We're not talking a lot of money. It might have been $6,000 a year to go to school here. Like, so they were each paying half. And I remember after like the first semester or the first year, my mother like crying and telling me she couldn't afford to pay. And I just kind of remember feeling like, I'm shocked that you made one payment. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like pound sand. And I knew I would have to eventually take on the loan. So I took on a bunch of loans. But it's crazy because I paid, when things started going well in New York, I paid off the loan so fast. I never really, and I don't really even remember. I knew I had them, but I don't, you know, it's like such a distant memory. And it was like, again, like racing, like life. It was like I was in survival mode then in school. I was just like, what's the next challenge? Just like ticking things off the box, like an inmate crossing days off. And I just get to the next day, get to the next event. And, but yeah, my mother unfortunately catches a lot of shit in the book, and I feel I would be lying if I didn't say I didn't feel guilty, because I know writing about those things, people might think like, oh, what an asshole. He didn't have to tell that story, and you're right, I didn't, but this is my story. And these are the things that had a massive influence on me. And like I said earlier about trauma, is like, the things that are traumatic to me might not be traumatic to you. This isn't a contest. This is my life, and I'm recounting impactful moments in my life. And the reason that I felt necessary to tell that story is because it really summarized my relationship with my mother. Is like, this is what I was dealing with. And if you met her right now and she was here, you'd be like, oh, she's really nice. I don't understand this. And I'd be like, it's easy to be nice to people when they don't need anything from you. And it's easy to be nice to someone when they're in the position of power and authority, financially, socially, and otherwise. It's not so easy when like you're responsible for someone and it's inconvenient for you to be like generous with someone. And, you know, listen, dude, for the listeners, there was so much shit in this book that I took out to spare other people's feelings that would have been relevant to the story. But I would ask Mishka, like, is this going to add to the story enough to justify ruining this person's day? I mean, you can testify, like, I spared a lot of people a lot of pain by leaving this out, and I would have been totally justified to be like, F you, tell me that didn't happen. Yeah. Like, that happened. But when I really think about it, I'm like, does my book get better? Is my story better because I tell you about someone did something terrible to me? Like, not terrible to me in an abusive way, but like just heartless or basically behaved badly, but didn't necessarily contribute to my story, but it makes them look terrible. So anywhere that I could, I spared people's feelings. Yeah. So as you're reading this and you think I was being too harsh, trust me, This is the fucking toned down version.
Let's move on to number 5, joy killers. It sounds like at the end of, your sort of using life in London there, that it was really the drugs that were doing the job for you or enabling you to be able to do the job.
Yeah, when I look back at London, it was all like a drug-induced haze. I mean, I remember the things that happened, but it's just so unfortunate that I was like under the influence and not really myself. Because as much as it sounds chaotic and aggressive and all the things that go with it, there were some awesome people there. I love the Brits. I really do. I loved living there. I had some awesome friends, but I was a horrible version of myself. I was way, way overly aggressive out of defensiveness. And I mean, I was managing the desk of other men and women, and I was not qualified to be the manager of anything. I could barely manage my own life. And now I'm like, I've got people with families working, like not, yes, I was the boss. I always felt uncomfortable being like, yeah, I'm the boss. I was like, we work together. Do your fucking job. And I don't ever have to deal, like, I don't have to talk to you. Like a good leader just enables people to do their job, and hopefully you never have to talk to them. And if you do, you just realize this person isn't qualified to work with me because I don't want to micromanage people, so it's not a good fit. But when I went there, the other challenging part was there was no trading desk for commodities in London. So they were like, not only go there, find new customers and set up a desk and hire like 30 or 40 people. I don't know a single customer. I don't know any of the people that work in the industry. I was so ill prepared, and I knew it, and the drugs made it a little bit more tolerable. But I hired probably 40 people in a year. So imagine how many interviews that is.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, people would come in. I remember one time this guy is sitting there, young kid, and he's just profusely sweating and coughing and scared. And I was like, dude, you know we're not going to fight, right? What the F are you so nervous about? And he's like, oh, I just get nervous about this stuff. And I'm like, well, what do you want to talk about? Let's not even talk about finance. And he's like, I don't know. I said, pick a fucking topic. Now I'm losing my patience. I'm like, tell me about the weather. I just want to talk to you about anything. But again, that's an example of like, I just wasn't good at this job.
But you had the clothes, you had the money, you had the car.
I thought I looked cool. I probably looked crazy, but I thought I looked cool.
Yeah. As similar as we are, there are a lot of differences in our, in our background stories. And, reading about that Porsche, I'm like, man, that should have been my Porsche. But it didn't seem to bring you any kind of lasting happiness.
Dude, when I think about the Porsche in 2001, I bought a 2002 Porsche right out of the factory in Stuttgart, drove it back to London. When I think about that car, the only overriding feeling that I remember is like extreme paranoia about being responsible for such an expensive car. Like it sucked all the joy out of it. All I could think was like, oh my God, where am I going to park this thing? And it was like, be careful what you wish for. Because I mean, it was such a mistake. And I wish that I could even say, I had so much fun ripping around in it. And I was like, for the amount of fun that I have versus the amount of money that I lost doing that deal, because then I sold it for like 20 grand less when I had to move out of London. It was just disaster.
Well, whenever you're ready for it, I have a 99 Suburban with your name on it. Let's talk about Shelby's granny flats.
Oh my God. It's like she's a fashion misfit. I mean, my wife is the most practical dresser in the world. She looks, I mean, thank God she looks beautiful. She's got a great physique. I mean, luckily for her, it doesn't. She's got good genetics. Because like,
you're doing such a disservice.
No,
like
she's
such
like
a great person in your life.
No, she works out, but not like I work out. But I'm always like, I can't believe how good a shape you're in for how little you work out. No, but she had these outfits, and I mean, I tell this. I think I tell the story in there where when I first started dating her, she was saying if I got a lot of money, keep in mind, she grew up like her parents, I mean, they were wealthy, but they weren't ostentatious. All the kids went to private school. She went to Vandy. The sister went to Georgetown. One went to Richmond. One went to Michigan. They all went to grad school. Dad paid for everything, cash. Like, so they were, they had a house and shelter around, but they weren't flashy, and they were certainly not like they didn't have trust funds, and they certainly weren't paying the kids rent. So Shelby was living as an actress in New York City and not making a lot of money, and she's very frugal and good with her money, but fashion she just wasn't Like there were times where I bought her like Jimmy Choo and Manolo Blahnik shoes, and she's like, "Can I return these and keep the money?" Cause like, and I was like, "Yeah, but what are you gonna do about those like granny flats that you're wearing? Like, I don't want to go to dinner while you're wearing those." And she would laugh, and we'd find a compromise. But no, I'm teasing her, but she's very elegant and she knows what's what. But I do tease her if we're going out to dinner. I'll be like, she'd be like, "What should I wear?" I said, "Put something on and let me see." And sometimes she'll walk out and I'll be like, "Dude, did you even look? What are you doing with that crazy outfit on? Get in there." No, we have fun with that because as much as I clown about the clothes, like with the lime green suit and then going to London and spending tons of money on fancy clothes, like I will like from an emotional intelligence standpoint, I always once I figured out what to do, I knew what to do. If you told me we're going to a black tie event, I would know exactly what tuxedo to wear. And as an example, one of my really good friends is a guy called Tom Browne, who's like a super famous designer. He's like the equivalent. Like he's won the CFDA, the Fashion Institute of the Year, Designer of the Year twice. And when I mean the first year he won, the competitors were Ralph Lauren and Giorgio Armani. I mean, I think he sold his brand for like $700-800 million. He's huge. His suits, thousands. LeBron James wears his suit. He dressed Michelle Obama for the inauguration one year. Wow. So when he first started getting cracking, he was dating my buddy's cousin, this guy Charlie Fagan, who was a big exec at Polo, who's just they were awesome guys. I loved these guys. They in like early 2000s, before I moved to London, I met them. My buddy Pat Fagan came down to New York and was like, "Hey, let's go out with my cousin Charlie and his boyfriend Tom Browne." But Tom was like folding sweaters at Club Monaco. He literally worked at a retail store. But there was something about Tom where I'm like, dude, this guy is uber creative. And went to Notre Dame, was a swimmer, very reserved. And next thing you know, so he's designing clothes, like he's making shirts and overcoats and like really high-end stuff. So I was buying stuff from him because I was making money and I was supporting my friends. So he'd make me custom shirts. I bought this Chesterfield coat, which is like a suit you'd wear over a jacket you'd wear over a suit. It's like really polished and finished, like a fancy overcoat, but not super long or heavy, like slick. Mm-hmm. And it had like a velvet collar. It was like great. Dude, it was so sharp. And recently someone reached out and was like, "Oh, would you be willing to donate the coat to like the Fashion Met Museum or something?" Because it was a handmade thing. I was like, I wouldn't give this jacket up for $100,000. It might have cost $5,000 at the time. It was handmade. It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing like I probably wear it like once every other year. And I was like, "Why don't you wear that nice Tom Browne coat?" I'm like, "It's too nice. I don't want to ruin it," which is kind of counterproductive. But when they started carrying Tom's suits in Bergdorf Goodman, when his shit started really blowing up, I wore his suit in a big photo spread for Esquire magazine with me, Tom, Mark Forrester, who directed Monsters Ball and Finding Neverland, and this art gallery owner from New York. And we did a photo shoot at the old Four Seasons restaurant that was like the big media power place where like, you know, Ralph Lauren would be having lunch with like Anna Wintour. Like it was super, super fancy. It had a fountain in the middle of the restaurant. It was like a pool fountain. So as much as I can joke and laugh about fashion, like when it was time to like turn up and look like I knew what I was doing, I was very good at understanding like basic men's fashion.
Oh, I'm the same way.
You're a mess. You are a mess.
I want to look like a guy who's really, really comfortable. That's my
mission accomplished. I was laughing with, we both have the same age and bird level at UTA, and I was laughing with him. I'm like, for a guy who has a like small real estate empire, this guy relishes being like the starving artist. He's like, he pisses me off. You're like the most frugal guy I know, but it's so unnecessary. I'm like, live a little, dude. Buy a nice mattress. Stop sleeping on a futon with your damn wife. Grow up.
You know, we both have that like poverty background or that feeling of like,
yeah, you relish in it. I don't want to go back.
Yeah, and it's manifested in completely opposite ways for us.
That's the other nice thing about working with you. So for everyone listening, we could not be more diabolically opposed on so many social and political issues. But I wish that everyone in the political social spheres could have the same mutual respect for others and be like, I completely disagree with you, but I love you so much I can't even argue about it. I just accept your opinion and we're all good. Moving on. I'm not going to change your mind. You're not going to change mine, but I still love you and we want the same things.
Yeah. Well, you know, I have to give you your flowers here because you really showed me that we can be friends and that like the shit that we don't agree about, we have a million other things to talk about.
right.
And we can consciously make the decision to let's talk about that stuff and destroy the friendship, or let's stick to the things that you and
Yeah.
I have so much in common, you know.
Yeah.
And you've been such a great friend to me over the years, you know.
Well, thank you, man. But the thing is, we can even talk about it without getting angry at each other. It's the same
Yeah.
thing with your like attitude on money and clothes. I'm like, dude, live a little, like enjoy yourself. Why have 3 shitbox cars? Just buy one good one and not have to worry about it. But I'm not going to convince you. So now I can laugh about it and you can laugh about it.
Yeah. Towards the end of chapter 5, Subutex comes into your life.
The worst.
And, you know, looking at your story as a student of narrative, it's like Cinderella in that, you know, it's like a horrible thing happens, a great thing happens, a horrible thing happens, a great thing happens. And it just seems like, you know, rereading the book and seeing you discover Subutex, it feels like finally your addiction has been unlocked.
Yeah.
And it has,
Yeah.
but in the wrong way, not the,
Yeah.
you know.
Subutex is a great drug for some people, and it is an excellent way to transition off opioids if used appropriately. If it's taken for more than 1 to 2 weeks, you are digging yourself a very deep hole. It's just the same way you're addicted to opioids, you will be addicted to Subutex, and in a lot of ways, the way it was described to me at least, and I'm not obviously not a doctor or a scientist, but that the way it attaches to your opioid receptors or whatever function these things play in your brain. And this is very like simpleton description, but that almost it's like stickier. It binds tighter to those receptors, meaning it is a lot harder to get off. That has been my experience. Subutex was harder to get off than the opioids. So when you think the problem is for a lot of people, they cannot stay sober without the Subutex. So they'll like, or like Subutex, methadone, same thing. So if you're on long-term maintenance methadone, there is a school of thought that's like, well, at least you're not doing heroin. And yes, that's very true because those kind of drugs, methadone and Subutex, they won't have you like ready to rob a bank. You know, when I worked in the prison, everyone in prison who robbed a bank or robbed anyone was a drug addict. Sober people don't do something so stupid. So when you're on Subutex and methadone, you're not jonesing. You're typically getting it from a clinic and, you know, you take it every day, once a day, and it's long lasting. It's not like chasing opioid high. And if you don't use it to simply transition off of the opioids and minimize your withdrawal symptoms, you're basically digging yourself another hole of addiction with Subutex. And it is very, very hard to get off. And you don't get high from it. So it's not like I can't live without that feeling. It's like almost like a policing system where it's like prevents you from wanting necessarily heroin, like curbs a lot of the cravings, but you've got a new addiction. And when I tried to get off Subutex so many times, there were times I was so addicted to Subutex, I'm like, I'm going to take Percocets for a week and try and wean myself off of the Subutex. And it was just, I probably did that for 2 years. Like I do opioids for a month, then I'll do Subutex for 2 weeks, then back on, it was horrible. And I don't think I'm a dummy. So when you're hearing this and you're like, what an asshole, why is he doing that? Like, yeah, no shit, I don't want to do that. I'm telling you the fucking vicious cycle I was stuck in. And I don't, again, not making excuses. I'm not a victim. I'm a fucking idiot. This is what I did to myself. This is why at times I struggle with like self-loathing. I'm like, what an asshole. I can't believe I did. If someone else told me they were doing this, I'd be like, get your shit together and stop this. But I couldn't stop myself. This addiction is so powerful that I don't think I'm a weakling. I think I'm like a pretty tough person and I'm resilient, and I struggled mightily. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. And, but yeah, if you're listening to this and on Subutex, contemplating Subutex, recognize if it's used properly, it does its job. But ultimately, the one drug that saved my life was Vivitrol. And Vivitrol provides no high whatsoever, and all it does is block opioid receptors in your brain from letting drugs attached to them. So you can shoot heroin after Vivitrol. You're not going to get high. You might overdose if you take too much, be trying to fight through the Vivitrol block, but it ain't happening. Vivitrol is like your internal policing system, and it's a 30-day extended release injection that you get in like in the glute muscle in your ass. And it when they took out the needle to give it to me, I mean, it looked like a liter of fluid. I looked at the woman, I'm like, there's no way that whole shot is going to go into my muscle. Like, how is it going to absorb all that? I said, my ass is going to be like, it was so big. And I hope that when people are hearing this, they're like, that sounds horrible. Yeah, it was. The whole fucking thing was horrible, and you shouldn't ever want to be in this position yourself. But if you do find yourself in a deep hole, stop digging. And that's what I had to do, and this was the only way out of it. And I will tell you that I'm proud of getting out of it, but I could have done without doing this to myself and the long-term damage. And I know it's easy to look at the story now and be like, you did it, yay, good for you. Like, no, man, I'm carrying fucking trauma and darkness from this period of my life that I'm still trying to get out of. Like, I'm ready to cry right now thinking about it. I'm just so angry at myself. I gave away 10 years of my life.
And then you got it back. You got your life back.
I'm trying to make up for lost time here. I'm trying to cram it all in, as you've seen the last couple of days.
Yep.
It never stops.
Chapter 6, Running Through Hell. When you started talking about Vivitrol, I was like, hold on, buddy. We're not there yet. We got a lot of ground to cover before you get that like break in the clouds. So you're working at Credit Agricole, and you have this like combination of bravado and self-doubt. And then I think this is the financial collapse in 2008.
No, this is post financial crisis. Financial crisis, I was working at Natixis, and I was on a sales trading desk, and we structured and sold synthetic CDOs, collateralized debt obligations. So all the stuff that blew up in the financial crisis is what we were trading and selling. So we would create these synthetic collateralized debt obligations, sell them to insurance companies, hedge funds. For people listening that know that space, like you, I don't want to bore. If you're not a finance guy, you're never going to understand any of this. I was there and I don't understand it, but we were selling like different parts of a capital structure, like the equity, super senior insurance. Again, I don't want to bore people that aren't in finance because it is boring, but we were trading like incredibly volatile, high cash price instruments, like hundreds of millions of dollars trading every day. In hindsight, it was it's so crazy. Like, and it was like maybe an 8-man operation at one point. I think we went from being up like 200 or 300 million, and I'm thinking we're going to be rich. We're all going to get paid based on the performance. And the funny thing is, when you work in finance on a trading desk like that, it would be typical to have like $150,000 base salary, which, you know, yeah, it's a lot of money, but in finance, that's not a blip on the radar. And I'm not saying that, this is just facts. It's not posturing. I don't give a shit about money. You make like 150 grand, but you might be making $3 million a year, but your salary is minimal. And the way it works is you would get, when you sign a contract, just like a sports team, you'd have a guaranteed minimum contract, let's say $1 million. But if we hit these metrics, performance metrics, it could be 3 million. And the way it gets structured at a bank is if you got a $3 million bonus, you would get 1 to 1.5 million, so 30 to 50% upfront, and then the rest of it would vest over a 3-year period. So let's just say it was a $4 million bonus. You get $1 million now, and $1 million each year would vest, and it would be tied to the equity price of the bank. So every year you could sell another. So if you got $4 million this year, you get $1 million and $3 million vesting. The next year you get the same bonus. Now you get the $1 million bonus, but you can also sell that first year of vesting, so you would get $2 million. After you've been there 3 years, the $4 million bonus is actually $4 million because you can sell all the previous 3 years vesting schedule. The reason those deals are set up like that, and not to get too deep into finance bullshit, but the way it's set up like this is that they want to incentivize you to stay and make you have so much skin in the game that it's difficult to leave. So if, just like pro sports, if you were then going to go from JP Morgan to Goldman, you would tell the trader, the hiring manager at the new bank, like, okay, I have $6 million in unvested equity, in the new bank would typically be, if they wanted you bad enough, they'd be like, okay, here's the exact same amount in our equity on the same, in our stock on the same vesting schedule. So all that to say, I have this huge job and I'm thinking like, I'm going to get millions of dollars, but my contract says 150 grand and a minimum bonus of like 300. And I was so naive, I didn't even calculate in the vesting. I was just like, oh, at least I'll get 300 grand. Because when the crack started to form, I'm like, oh my God, I'm screwed. I just got married. I had a killer 2-bedroom penthouse apartment in a brand new building looking over the Hudson River. I want to say my mortgage was about $12,000 a month, and my take-home pay might have been like $6 grand, whatever 150 grand is after taxes. It wasn't a lot. I'm thinking, oh, that's all right. I'll get my bonus. I'll put a year's worth of salary aside, a year's worth of mortgage aside, and I'm good. But then when the crack started, because I think I'm going to get at least $1 million bonus. And very quickly I was like, no, not only are you not getting $1 million, you're going to get the minimum guarantee that you had. And by the way, when I realized that only the smallest percentage of that was being paid now, the rest of it was vesting, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go bankrupt. I can't afford to keep paying this mortgage. And it, like, when I tell you it turned on a dime, it went from like feast to famine quickly financially.
Yeah.
But just like everything else with my story, I just went into survival mode. I end up getting, and I knew the job was over there. So I negotiated. The guy who hired me there, Mitch Levy, was a great guy. And he's like, yeah, they're going to probably start firing people. I said, do me a favor. Fire me first so I can at least negotiate a severance and try to like get a couple months, like, they might give you 6 months. And he's like, all right. So literally they came in and fired me like a week later and were like, yeah, okay, we'll pay you for 3 to 6 months, whatever it was. And thank God I was able to get a job with Cantor Fitzgerald for a few months, working out of a satellite office in Florida, trading corporate bonds. And the thing that made that interesting at the time, although it wasn't a good career move, it was a great job because during the financial crisis, there was huge dislocation in prices. Like all of a sudden, these bonds, unlike stocks, don't have like a ticker where you can just go online and be like, how much is this bond trading for? A company like GM has one stock price. GM might have 3,000 bonds, maybe even more. So every company has shitloads of bonds and the prices are wildly different. The only way to figure out the price is to call a broker, me, like a trader, and be like, hey, I want to sell these GM 5-year, 4.5 coupon, blah, blah, blahs. What's the bid? Let's say 100 is par, right? So someone might be like, I'll pay 50 cents, 50 for those, half the price. And they were like, the seller might be thinking, oh, I thought they were worth 80. Then some other buyer comes in and be like, I'll pay 80 for those. And another seller's like, I'll sell them for 50. And all of a sudden you're buying them at 50 and selling them to 80 in one transaction. And it was literally like that. So the dislocation was so big that while I was in that brief period in my career, when I had the big penthouse and I lost my job, I was able to make a lot of money in that 3 months and it kept me good on the apartment. But it wasn't without like the most insane anxiety. I was living in Sarasota, Florida, commuting back and forth to New York. Shelby was in New York in the apartment. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my apartment. So I was working like a savage. And because of that decision to go there at Cantor, I was able to parlay that experience because I had no corporate bond trading experience before the crisis. I just figured that out on the fly because Cantor Fitzgerald gave me a chance to do this. Howard Lutnick's team, and Howard's always been like a gentleman to me, like just super nice guy. And another guy at Cantor called Danny LaVecchia, who was a fucking lunatic, but he was one of the hiring managers. And at one point when I was in London, he was involved. Someone sued him trying to, like, a broker was leaving and had a contract. It was like, Danny threatened to stab me in the neck with a pen if I tried to leave. And I was like, it's funny because you hear that and you're like, whoa, that guy sounds crazy. But I was there and he's like, dude, if you're coming in here as I'm going to stab you in the neck with this fucking pen. Like, like we were friends. And he's like, nah, he's like, dude, listen, it's too much money. I got to go. And he's like, oh, you suck. Like buddies. Like, yeah. But when they didn't want to let him go, he basically told them, yeah, Danny said he'd stab me in the neck with a pen. And technically he did, but he wasn't really going to. Anyway, they gave me that shot. It allowed me to have experience trading corporate bonds. And I'm telling this story in so much detail because it's important to understand how I transitioned from this time where I'm like thinking I'm going to lose my house, I'm going to go bankrupt, to then being like, I'm back. I did it again. I like reinvented myself. And that's when I went into Credit Agricole, met Andy Schaefer, who really changed my life because I had no business getting a job trading corporate bonds coming out of the financial crisis. I just didn't have experience. I didn't really have customers. People in that area in fixed income all over Wall Street were losing their jobs. The smartest people in the world were trading correlation, structured credit, all the shit that I was trading, and now they were all fired. So now everyone wants to find a job doing anything. And vanilla corporate bonds were considered very like vanilla. That was not sexy. No one wanted to do that coming out of like Harvard Business School. Yeah. But now that was the only job if you're in fixed income sales. So when I went in and met Andy Schaefer, that's the story with the cufflinks and the Rolex watch. And hopefully if you read the book, you'll know the story. And if you don't know the story, get the book. But Andy hired me right on the spot, which is crazy because I had interviewed at like 10 banks, like 15 times each. Andy Schaefer was the hiring manager at Credit Agricole, met me after a couple other guys met me and was like, yeah, you're hired. When can you start? I was like, I'll fucking start right now. I don't even have to go home. That's how desperate I was for a job.
Yeah.
Whether it's my training, recovery, or work, it all depends on how I fuel myself. That's why I love Athletic Brewing Company, the nation's leading non-alcoholic brewery. Launched back in 2018, they've completely shattered expectations for how great non-alcoholic brews can taste. The stuff genuinely tastes awesome, and their NA brews aren't just for the sober. This is truly great near beer. Whether you're not drinking for a round, a day, a month, or forever, with over 25 styles brewed each year, Athletic Brewing has got something for everyone. Personally, I love the Run Wild IPA and Athletic Light. They've become part of my routine. No hangover, no compromise. So whether you're looking to buy online or in person, go to athleticbrewing.com. If you're buying online, use promo code Rideout for 25% off your first order. That's athleticbrewing.com, code Rideout. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times.
Let's move into chapter 7, the new life. This is like after you've gotten off, you've done the Vivitrol, you've gotten off perks, and then, bro, you go right back. Talk about that, because I know that both of our stories, our journeys to sobriety, haven't been clean on off, and I'm always suspicious of addicts who are like, oh yeah, I just stopped and never did it again. I'm like, I feel like it's always a process, and it sounds like it was really a process for you.
Oh yeah, like I said, I was bouncing back and forth between the Vivitrol and between the Subutex and perks. And 2010, while we were, my wife and I had started an adoption process, and we had been married for 3 years. And during the 3 years of marriage, we had been trying to have kids naturally, and no explainable fertility issues, but she wasn't getting pregnant. So we eventually went to see fertility doctors, as you would imagine, and eventually we did like 7 rounds of in vitro. She got pregnant 3 times, 3 miscarriages, and it was starting to get dark. And like, I always believed she was going to get pregnant and never really felt stressed about it. My wife, not so much. She was not doing really well with this. Like, she was in a bad way. And but we were going to adopt anyway. So we had started the adoption process maybe a year into the marriage. In 2010, we get matched with a newborn daughter, a newborn girl, my daughter now, Tensei. And we were approved to adopt twins. But when they saw that Tensei was available, like was in an orphanage, and she was only 4 weeks old, they're like, listen, we knew we wanted newborn. That's what we wanted to adopt. And we wanted to adopt from a place where we could make the biggest difference, which is how, long story, how we ended up in Ethiopia. We weren't looking for an African country, an Asian, we were just looking to make a difference. And there's only so many countries in the world you can legally adopt from to begin with.
Yeah.
So we get matched up, and for whatever reason, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, dude, it's now or never. I'm on the Subutex, but I'm like on the most minimal dose, like less than 1 milligram a day, literally. But I could not get off that last bit. And I went to the outpatient facility called Parallax, where they gave me like basically medically assisted withdrawal week, and said, if you can stay off these drugs for 1 week, opioids and Subutex, we can give you this shot of Vivitrol, but you have to be clean 7 days and pass a drug screening.
How long was that 7 days?
Oh my God, it feels like I fucking had to like walk across Antarctica.
Yeah.
And like the Sahara Desert all at the same time. Like one minute I would be in the desert sweating bullets. The next minute I'd be freezing to death. And like unexplained, like my body's ability to manage temperature was completely off. Like my whole nervous system was shot. It was crazy in hindsight, like how effed up I made myself.
One of the things that we always used to say after like getting the first drink of the evening or the afternoon or the morning, is not necessarily the best one, but the most necessary. And I feel like that applies to to your first run that you did after collapsing, coming clean to Shelby. Talk about that run. I'm sure you remember that well.
Oh, yeah, that run, like so many, as one that I'm like running and crying at the same time and like trying to manage my emotions. And anyone who would see me would be like, what is going on with that lunatic? I'm not running fast. I'm just like in my feelings. I'm running, but I'm completely somewhere else. And, it's like I've heard people describe like if you're, living in the future, you're dealing with anxiety. If you're living in the past, you're dealing with sadness, something to that effect, and versus just living in the present. So I was trying to, through all these struggles, like I always knew what the right thing to do was. It's like I always knew the right road to take. I just never chose the right road all the time. I think it's a movie Scent of a Woman where Al Pacino's given the rant at the end at the private school, and he's like, I always knew which road to take, but I never chose it. I always chose the easy route. He's like, but not Charlie. Charlie's here taking the hard road. Yeah. And that's kind of how I feel, is like, I wouldn't say I've always taken the wrong route. I've taken the right route many times, but I always knew with 100% certainty which one was right and which one was wrong. The one that was wrong, though, might have been lined with like candy and naked girls, and the one that was hard was lined with like barbed wire and like pitchforks. But at the end of the difficult road was like the beach in Bora Bora, and the end of the like candy lined road was hell.
Yeah.
But you couldn't see the end of the road. You could just see what was telling you, come on, this road is easy. Take this one.
Yeah, I mean, looking at your life as a whole, it's easy to be like, oh, Ken's great at making conversions. But in the moment, you're like, I'm dying, So when you get back from Ethiopia with this new baby who opens your heart and changes your life, that's my favorite part of your story, is that you didn't stop using because you killed somebody while you were under the influence. It was love. It was hope. It was a child you'd never met before, but then you come back from Ethiopia and Shelby's pregnant.
Yep.
I feel like you're a creature of adversity. You're like a good guy in hard times, but that you struggle when you have too many good things.
That's exactly right.
Tell me about that.
Anytime, if someone cuts me off in traffic, I can be an irrational lunatic and seem like a vicious, like not nice person. But the minute there's like a crisis in like a public place, like I was on a flight last week to LA, and funny enough, I was sitting in like 1B, and a guy that I'm friends with through Rich Roll is sitting in 1D. We happen to see each other. He lives in Nashville from LA, guy Anthony. And I'm like, oh, hey, what's up, blah, blah, blah. So I get up to go to the bathroom, and there's a guy sitting behind me in like 2B, older guy, heavy. And I go to the bathroom, and as I come out, I see him steadying himself in the aisle. And as he goes to take a step, I was just like, hey, I grabbed his arm and just like instinctively, I'm like, yo, you all right? And he looks at me like with a like empty look, and I'm like, oh shit, this guy's not all right. And I'm like, buddy, all right? And like I grab him kind of like, not in a bear hug, but kind of like I get under his arm and like I'm holding him up, and he's unsteady. And he's like staggering to the bathroom and like busts through the bathroom door, and I'm hanging on to him, and he sits on the toilet. And then I don't know if it was an adult son, a guy older than me, comes over, and he's like, oh, he's sick, I'll deal with it. And the flight attendants are trying to kind of help, but they're like, the guy's big. Yeah. And she's like, do I need medical? I'm like, yeah, we need fucking medical. Call a doctor right now. And she's like, is there a doctor on the plane? So I'm helping. This has happened to me many times where I'm like the first responder, and I'm like, I'm thinking, I'm not prepared for this. Like, I don't want to do this. But in a crisis like that, I'm like, I've always been. And Shelby will tell you this too, for all my flaws. She'd be like, when there's a crisis, I'm always glad that you're there, because I know if there's one lunatic that's going to help to the extent that he can, it's you. But it is, being the first responder sucks. I was riding my bike once with Jack McDowell, who hired me at the Palisades Group, and we're riding up the PCH going to turn onto Latigo Canyon up near Laird Hamilton and Gabby Reese's house. And as we're going up PCH, it's the day, it might have been Christmas Day or the day before Christmas, an older guy's coming south on PCH, and he gets into He crosses over traffic and gets into the turning lane in the middle of the two lanes. And a car comes over the horizon, also going south in his direction, and just runs him over, like cleans him out from the back. And the guy's like 70, and he gets launched like 100 yards in the air, and he has a beautiful old school Pinarello bike, and he lands, and just like, you know, that sound of elbows and knees hitting the ground, and he flops down, and I go, Jack, shit. And I throw my bike down, I run across the street, I'm like, yo, buddy, all right? And he's like, you know, can't breathe, and I'm like, can you move your hands and feet? And he's like, and then the cops come. No, the kid gets out of the car, a young kid. I'm like, dude, call a fucking ambulance right now. What are you doing? And his windshield smashed. Like he was just a kid not paying attention.
Yeah.
Cops come, and at some point I grab the guys. I say to him, hey, you want me to call someone? I take his phone out of his pocket. He's like, yeah, call my wife. So I'm like, hey, my name's Ken. I'm riding with your husband. He had a minor accident. And I'm like, because there's no sense in alarming, right?
Yeah.
Dude, while this is happening, they're calling a chopper to come and get Helivec. He broke his hip, broke his leg. And then, of course, like any bike riding nerd, he's like, where's my bike? I'm like, buddy, your bike is right. It's mangled. Yeah. But the funny thing is, in Malibu, some woman who was there was like, oh, I run the dog grooming place. I'll take his bike and leave it in the store. So like I told the wife, but and again, I'm not trying to paint myself to be a hero. It's just like whenever I've seen things like that, I'm like, yo, we got to act. Like I feel a tremendous sense of community and responsibility to like other people in the community. But if you stand in front of me in the line, I'll be the first one to chop you in the throat and be like, you don't see me here. And my wife would be like, this is so irrational. You're a nut to someone for the minor infraction. But when someone's like on the verge of death or someone's threatening to beat someone up, you want to jump in and help them. I'm like, it's like the same thing with race. It's like a blessing and a curse. I can't control it. Like you get the good with the bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's move into chapter 8, Win or Die Trying. I want to talk about boxing, because I think boxing speaks so much to so many areas of your life, and how you run, how you race, how you compete, how you interact with people. Hockey is a huge fighting culture too, but there's a thing where like you're going to go out there to kill the guy on the ice, or you're going to go out there to kill the guy in the ring. And then afterwards you have a beer together.
Yeah. Boxing, hockey is less about only the professional fighters, only professional players really get to fight. If you get in a fight anywhere else, you're like suspended for so long, just like any other sport. But boxing really, is a metaphor for life. Like we're all in a fight. Everything's a fight. Whether you want to label it that or not, it's just some fights you're not getting punched in the face physically, but you're getting punched in the head, like, metaphorically. And I think everyone should have some experience in understanding how to defend themselves at the very least. You shouldn't be out in the world just completely helpless. I mean, you wouldn't see at the end of the day, we're all animals. You wouldn't have a lion out there that like voluntarily takes his claws out. Like at some point if you need to like behave like a lion, you should be able to do that. And that's not to say you're looking for conflict, to the contrary. But I would rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Like you should have some basic understanding of defending yourself. And that was my mentality with boxing. As a kid, I was like always scared of conflict, and I did a good job of hiding it, but at some point I took a very practical position and was like, I need to learn how to like throw these hands. I don't want to be like caught. I don't want to get caught in a storm unprepared. I know it sounds crazy, but that was my mentality. And going into that boxing gym, I was scared shitless, just like anyone listening to this who doesn't know how to box would think going into a real inner city boxing gym would be scary. Yeah, and it was. But you know what I did? I fucking did it anyway. Just like everything else that I've done that's been hard. I'm scared just like you. I have no special skill or special talent. I just fucking do it anyway.
And then after you having the courage to walk in the door alone as a kid, they welcome you with open arms.
I wouldn't call it open arms. This wasn't like, yay, Ken's here. They're like, all right, get your shit on. Let's go. Like there was nothing nice going on there. Yeah. But eventually
they saw the work.
Yeah, it's like being in jail, man. If you walk in there and you're like a punk and you're like a pushover, no one respects that. But you go in there and you carry yourself with integrity and, you have some humility. But there's just like every step along the way in life, you get little tests, and it's not like a fucking structured thing. Like, let's test Ken and let's, hide his shoes or something. Like people do shitty, like foolish little things that might be teasing, it might be accidental, but ultimately everyone's watching your reaction. And that's the thing, like same thing with bullying. It's like human nature. If you let someone get away with some shit, tomorrow the shit might be a little bit more intense. And at some point you have to put your foot down and be like, the shit ends right now.
Yep.
And you know what? I tell my kids this. If the worst thing that can happen to you is you get in a fight with a bully and you lose the fight, I guarantee you with 100% certainty that kid will not fight with you again. No one wants to get into a fight. And the minute that they see you're willing to fight, they'll leave you alone 100% of the time. And guess what? Most places, if you get in a fight, someone's going to break it up in like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
So if you think you're going to get in a fight, start throwing. Don't wait to I'd always
Don't wait
funny.
to get hit,
It's always
yeah.
funny to me when people are like bumping chests. Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I'm like, if you tell me you're going to punch me, I'm going to believe you. And I'm not going to wait.
Yeah.
And that's what everyone should have, the same mentality. And it's not about being a tough guy. Like I said, I'm furthest thing from. But I also have common sense and have been punched in the face enough to know I'm not waiting to get punched in the face. I'd rather punch you and be wrong than let you punch me in the face. Because someone who knows what they're doing punches you in the face. It might not end very well.
Yeah. It's, you know, I feel about fighting the way I feel about making change in my head. That like, I don't love doing it, but it's a skill that I have ready
Yeah.
when it, you know, when it's necessary. Ken, I feel like many people in your life, myself included, are constantly on you to relax a little bit, to take your foot off the gas for 1 second. You did that in Kona,
Yeah.
and everything went to shit.
Yep.
And then now, looking in the book, you have put a picture of you making the, like,
Of course.
you know, probably the worst or one of the worst moments of your life, heaped with shame and regret, something that really galvanized you. And eventually, you know, you turn the corner on it. But man, where do you have the balls sharing, you know, a picture of yourself at your weakest moment like that?
I mean, this book is not a victory lap. Like, it's easy to look at it and be like, oh, Ken fucking won this big race. Like, you think I liked writing about in high school, my whole high school chanting that I suck? For a long time, that was the worst thing that had ever happened to me. I mean, I couldn't sleep after that happened. I was like, I can't believe that these people just humiliated me like this. I went from being the starting quarterback, feeling good about myself, to feeling like ostracized by my peers. And talking about quitting in Kona after I got there is painful, but I also use it as a cautionary tale, because the minute that you like suffer with your own shame in silence, it's like you're only as sick as the secrets you keep. I'm like, that's not a fucking secret that I went there and didn't finish. But guess what? If you can learn from my failure, you should. And that's why I use that story frequently when I do talks and stuff, to say the pain that you will experience from quitting at anything in life will linger with you for the rest of your life. You'll know what it feels like to be a dead dog loser and a quitter. And it sucks. Losing is one thing. I mean, I have millions of losses. I was telling my kids the other day, you think I just got to show up and win races? You know how many races I had to lose before I got to win one?
Yeah.
It's like wrestling or jiu-jitsu. You don't just win, you lose a lot. And eventually, if you keep losing enough and learning, you eventually win. And that's part of the journey here. Is like, if I didn't go to Kona and quit the first time I was there, I might have finished in like 11 or 12 hours and be like, yay, I did it. But because I quit and lived with that sting, it hurt so bad that I went back and did like a 939 the next year, and then eventually became like a better runner. But that pain of quitting motivated and influenced the rest of my journey in endurance sports and led to the book. I mean, without quitting there, I don't write a book.
Yeah.
Because I don't probably win a world championship. I don't win the Gobi March. And even when I met Shelby, I was like, oh, man, I would love to write a book about some of the experiences I've had. And she would always be like, you should do it. And I was like, I feel like the book needs an ending. I need like a culmination. Like, what am I doing that's special? I'm like barely surviving life. I'm like, you know, at that time I was like, oh, I was addicted to drugs. What good is, like, she's like, well, you got sober. I'm like, that's like necessary evil. But the running then gave me something to feel pride in. And again, I didn't set out to win a marathon and write a book about running. I just was running to distract myself from the other shit that I was dealing with. And very quickly it became a source of pride and something that I eventually ended up getting good at, relatively speaking.
We talked about this last night. We didn't, you know, we weren't sure if it was something that the editors at the publisher did on purpose or on accident. But I think you have your ending to your story, and it's revealed there in the pictures that the last picture is not you holding all your medals. The last picture is you training. It's you doing the work. It's ongoing, man. I mean, you and I are both total messes in our heads, and we both managed to be successful at it, in our own way. And you just force yourself to get up in the morning and put your socks on and go to war like anybody else,
Yeah. If you think you're doing something, whether it's working, training to get to the finish line, and then when you get there, somehow your life is going to be like, almost like you've gone to know you're now in nirvana, you're very misinformed and probably lying to yourself. The journey never ends until they shut the lights off on you. You can be the Olympic or world champion. The next day, you're still going to wake up and have to figure, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
And I think that that's what I've tried to explain in the book is like, it's nice to have these accomplishments along the way, but at the end of the day, like I talk about with going to Onsite, and like you said, the photo editor was brilliant because it ends showing me doing high rocks training. Like I'm going to do some high rocks races, for instance. Like I'm kind of done what I've had to do in running and just looking for the next chapter. And that's basically synonymous with what life is, right? Like, okay, what's next? And it doesn't have to be training. Like that's sort of, I really hope that people listening or reading the book understand. Like, I'm not telling you go run. I don't even like running. It's like I just got faster. It didn't get easier. But what I hope people get from it is like, find something that you're passionate about that's yours. You're more than a dad. You're more than a husband. Like it's naive to think that because you are a dad, a husband, and all these other things, that somehow your life is less important and that you don't necessarily matter. It doesn't mean you have to be selfish, but it's like you weren't put on earth just to have children. You were put on earth to raise your kids. Part of raising your kids is setting an example. And like I say many times, the kids will believe some of the things you tell them, but they'll believe almost everything that you show them. And what I try to demonstrate to them is discipline, grit, determination, because without those things, it's going to be very difficult. Unless you are a savant or someone has handed you something and you just have a very special, unique set of skills, life is going to be difficult and you're going to get challenged. And, even when you think everything is Gucci and you've got money and a family and you live in a beautiful house, and then my wife gets cancer. And I can tell you right now, I would give away every single thing I have, and I would also take terminal cancer to not have to have my wife go through breast cancer. And even though it's curable and all those things, when someone you love gets diagnosed with something like cancer, initially feels like a death sentence, and I'm like, I just take me. Please don't do this. And that helpless feeling, and the point is, the shit never ends. Like, be prepared. Stay ready, don't get ready in life. And that's kind of what I think that the photo editor in the book captured really well, is like, there's no like rest. I'm not on a hammock like, yay, I did it.
Yeah. I feel like if anyone gets through this book and doesn't fall in love with Shelby, we both failed. That for those people who are on the right side of history and adore her, tell us that she's okay now.
Yeah, she's okay now. She had a mastectomy. She's cancer-free, through the woods. All the like different treatment things that they did to her are done, and now she gets like a reconstructive surgery. And I said, look, if there's a silver lining, you'll be 52, a cancer survivor with a new set of boobs. Everybody wins. And she lied. The only way I've ever known how to deal with things like that is to try to make light of it. I mean, even when they were taking her in for surgery, the doctors and nurses thought I was crazy because, it's emotional and she's getting ready to go and they're starting to give her the anesthesia. And they're like, all right, say goodbye. We're going to take her. And I'm like, all right. I don't want to we've already cried enough. Like we're done with that. So I'm like, hey, you got this. Get in there and kick ass. And I said, do me a favor. Don't die. She was like, and of course the nurses and doctors were like, oh my God, this guy's crazy. And Shelby was like, he's crazy. I know.
Well, I have to tell you that your specific brand of craziness, has shone through in my family. My sister's a huge fan, and my poor wife has heard us our two gravel voices like berating each other like so many times that now like when she gets behind on the dishes or something like that, she's like, "All right, no bullshit." No excuses. I'm gonna wash these dishes like a motherfucker. Win or die trying, bro.
It sounds funny and we joke about it, but there is an element of truth there where, like, I don't know how I come across, and sometimes I think people think I'm more aggressive and ruthless than I am, but there is an element of reality to that, what you just described, where at some point I'm like, I do not want to do this, but then I catch myself like taking the easy way out, and I'm like, toughen the fuck up. Thank God you can run. I really do this when. Like when you were saying last night, we were working out in my gym, and I forget what you said about your shoulder, or like, yeah, I used to be able to do these heavier weights, and I'm like, fuck all that. So what? So today you can't do what you used to do. There's someone out there who can't get out of a wheelchair. There's someone out there that can't lift their arms at all. So your weight's not this. It's like, this isn't a contest. You're not in competition with anyone else. It's you against yourself in life. And I'm very good at giving advice. I don't take my own advice as well as I should. But I will tell you that I am really good at when someone needs to, like, I get a kick in the ass of being like, yo, what are you talking about? Like someone reached out and was like, hey, I want to talk to you. I bought your book. And I'm like, well, what do you want to talk about? I try to respond to everyone because, I mean, I'm super appreciative of anyone that likes me. I like people that like me. He said, I'm thinking about doing social media, maybe starting my own YouTube channel. I go, what the fuck are you talking about thinking about it? Just do it.
Yeah.
There's no barrier to entry. You know what you can guarantee if you don't do it? It ain't going to work.
Yeah.
And if the worst thing that happens is you do it, what's going to happen? People are going to tease you. How fucking old are you? You care about the opinion of a stranger on the internet? Who cares?
Yeah.
Get out there and start throwing punches. You never know what's going to happen. But I can tell you one thing for sure for anyone listening. If you don't try to chase your dreams, you can rest assured they won't come true. And you're either working on making your dreams come true or someone else's. And if you're working for someone else and being underpaid and underappreciated, you're working on their dreams and not your own. And for a long time, I did that. And I can tell you that chasing my own dreams cost me a lot of security and money. I had been offered many finance jobs after I started to get some attention for living the life that I live now. And I had turned down I'm not saying this to be a braggart, as I've described here, money isn't my motivator, but I've turned down millions of dollars to work on a trading desk where I'm like, I would rather not be a slave to like that desk. And I get it. Some people, they want that life. I don't need you to pay my health insurance and guarantee me a salary. I would rather go down swinging and eat what I kill and not make as much money. But there isn't a day that goes by, even on my worst day working for myself, that I don't think, I can't believe I don't have a job. I'm so lucky. I don't do anything. I do a lot of things that I don't want, but not the way I felt when I had a job, where I had a salary job, where I felt like someone else owned my time. And all I can tell you is when a lot of times when people want to talk to me, they want to know, how'd you do it? What should I do? There's no fucking easy answer. I wish I could tell you how I did it. I prayed to God, clinched up, and just jumped. And it was not easy. And I would say there was a period when I moved to LA where I didn't sleep for like 6 months because I was running out of money, working in a job at one point when I made the switch to the Credit Agricole, to the Palisades Group, working for my dear friend Jack McDowell, who changed my life more than anyone in my life professionally by giving me a chance to run business development at Palisades Group. I offered to work there for free for 3 months. I probably was down to like $30,000 in the bank. My rent was $12,000. I had 4 brand new babies, and I was living in LA we didn't have family out there. And I was like, I am going to figure this out or I'm going to go bankrupt and drive a taxi. I don't know. But I was like out of options. And I was like, I would back myself into a corner. And I made it work. Jack gave me a shot to work there, and it changed my life. I made the best of the opportunity, and now I work for myself, and I don't need anything.
So let's tackle this transition from life in New York to, we called the chapter Escape from New York. When you leave for California, the first question is, can anyone ever really leave New York? You're one of the most like New York guys that I know. I was just, out there recently, and I was there for 15 minutes before I was yelling at somebody on the train. It like gets in your blood. Were you able to leave it behind at all, or?
Oh my God, if I never went back to New York again, it would be too soon. Like,
Really?
Oh, that place is necessary evil sometimes. I'm like, I gotta go to New York. Oh, let's just suck it up and power through. I don't know. Maybe I'm an old grouch. When as a kid, it was awesome living in the chaos. Go to the Rangers
Absolutely.
game, go to the Knicks game, best dinners. I loved walking home at night from a dinner back up to like my apartment or in the East Village, wherever I was living. I loved walking in the city, and I do like that part now. But flying into JFK or LaGuardia, taking a long ass taxi ride, even that, I'm like so jaded. Usually when I land at JFK, I'll spend the extra $200 and take the Blade helicopter from JFK into like the west side. But it's crazy if people who don't know, you can take an Uber. If you take a black car, like the high end Uber, it's $150 to $200, and it could take 60 to 90 minutes easily.
Yeah.
Blade helicopter, $275 or $250, 5 minutes from the airport to the Upper West Side heliport, that West Side heliport. So I take that every time. But even that, it's like the friggin' helicopter's $275, the airplane ticket. Then you got to stay in a ridiculously expensive hotel because everything in New York is impractical and expensive. The hotel room is the size of a friggin' shoebox. It's just when I go there, I'm like, it's so much effort to get around there.
I call it the big hassle.
Be
Perfect, because like to do anything in New York, it's like an hour and a half.
And if you have a meeting, like I was staying at on Central Park South, I like to stay near the park to run in the park. But if you have like a meeting in Madison Square Garden area, it's too far to walk. A taxi's going to take forever. So inevitably, like, let me take the damn subway. And just getting in the subway is always like, not that it's dangerous, but I always feel like, man, the train can get stopped between stations for 2 hours. I've seen it all.
Yeah.
And it's just like a crapshoot. That's what I mean. Like, if I'm in here in Nashville and something's going on, I'm like, oh, let me jump in my car. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Anywhere.
Yeah.
Everything's 15 minutes. But
I'm always stoked to go to New York and stoked to leave.
I never get excited to go.
Let's talk a little bit about parenting, because you and Shelby are such radically different people. I mean, first off, I have so much respect for you guys for like the journey you've taken as parents. I think that it takes a certain level of like faith and hope and belief and commitment, to have a child of your own. It's another step to adopt another baby, and then a transracial adoption. It's a whole, other set of rules and the and issues to deal with your child about where they fit in and who they are and where they belong. Was that Somerville is not the most progressive place in the world. Did you ever have any? Was there any issues with adopting a child from Ethiopia, or it was just like kid is a kid?
No, a kid is a kid. I never really had racial issues. I mean, I was around a lot of racist people, but I don't even think they were racist as much as it was like the norm.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone really felt racist. I mean, I'm sure some of them did, but like people would make racial comments. And I mean, when I was a kid, people used the N-word like a matter of fact. And it was a different time. I never was like, oh my God, there's black people here. Right. Like I talk about going to the like friggin' welfare camp where I was one of the only white kids, but I didn't think of it like they're black kids. I just thought like, oh my God, we're poor, but these are the really poor kids, meaning like they were from the inner city projects, but white or black. It wasn't like, I was like, oh my God, they're black. Therefore they're like worse than the like shitty white kids that I knew from the same background who were like, one socioeconomic rung below me. It was just like, oh my God, I'm here with all the shithead kids.
Yeah.
Race was irrelevant.
They're strangers. They start by threatening you.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
But I never even considered her race when we adopted her. And only after we adopted her, as she was like, when she was a little kid and started to notice that she's different, but we never shied away from it. Like we had pictures of her birth mom in her room all the time. We talk about her. My wife talks to Tensei's birth mom all the time on Google Translate on Facebook. Yeah, she was a young girl when she had her, but we're like in close communication. We'll eventually go to Ethiopia when Tensei's probably when she's 18, because she's starting to like she'll be 16 in the summer. She's starting to like. For a long time, she didn't want to hear anything about it. It wasn't that she didn't want to be adopted. She didn't want to be Ethiopian. And the reason is when she would Google Ethiopia, it looked like, a third world country. It looked poor. So to her, she's like, I don't want people to think that I'm like poor, or, like in a weird way, in a kid's brain. This is what she saw. Cause I remember one time she's like, I'm not going to live here anymore. I'm going back to Ethiopia, something like that. And I said, all right, pack your suitcase, but you don't have to take your shoes. She's like, why don't I need shoes? I said, no, they don't want shoes in Ethiopia. So I typed into Google, like, tribal people in Ethiopia. I go, hey, this is Ethiopia. And she was like, and then of course I was like, I'm just teasing you. But she was like scarred by that. But we laugh about it now. But no, she's early on when she didn't like being different. But I wasn't, a DEI expert on understand how to explain the nuances. I just said to her one time, and I didn't think about this. I had never heard it before. I just said to her, like, let me ask you something. I'm always very like logical and practical with the kids. I go, let me ask you something. If you cut your arm and you bleed, what color is the blood? Red. I said, what color is my blood? Red. I said, what color eyes do I have? Brown. What color does mom have? Green. What color does Jack have? Brown. What about you? Dark brown. I was like, what about hair? I said, imagine if you didn't like someone because they had red hair or brown hair. You have black hair. You have brown eyes. Your skin is brown. Because I said to her, I was like, was that, I forget how I said it, but I was like, oh, was there another black kid there? She goes, who are you calling black? Not antagonistic. She goes, who are you calling black? Like, genuinely, like, what do you mean? Who's black? And I said, you. And she's like, I'm not black. She's like, I'm brown. What are you talking about? Don't call me black. And I was like, no. It's it's not literally black, but it was just, I say that to explain the brain of a child who doesn't understand racial bias. She just understands practicality. So to her, she was like, I got brown skin. So the way I explained it to her was like, you don't judge someone based on the color of their hair. So you don't judge someone based on the color of their skin. It's as arbitrary as the color of your eyes. Some people you get what you get and you don't get upset. And I said, look, and then I would show her like, she said to me, she's like, it's just not cool. And then I was like, what? And I bring up pictures of like Erykah Badu and Lauryn Hill. And I'm like, you think that these girls don't think that they're cool?
Yeah.
And she's like, Erykah Badu, she's like, yeah, but who would dress like that? I said, guess what? Whatever you tell people about yourself, they believe you. If you go out there and carry that outfit like you're the coolest, I guarantee you those people think that Erykah Badu is cool, even if they wouldn't wear what she wears. And then she eventually got it. And, it hasn't been without its challenges, though, as she's gotten older of dealing with racial differences. But the one quick thing I do want to say is moving to Nashville was the greatest thing we ever did. The black families in the neighborhood where we live, like, as you can, anyone who knows me and who listens to me long enough probably can tell that I'm not like very filtered and I say what I'm thinking and kind of maybe sometimes to my detriment. But some of the black families in our community have been the most kind, impactful people outside of our family on our children that I've ever met. The way that they've like, I don't want to say they adopted us like we're a frigging sympathy, like we're like someone's pet project, but they understand the nuances and the challenges of having a black girl living with a white family. Like the guys that I'm friends with from the neighborhood, I'd be like, listen, one of the things that I'm really worried about is, she gets to college and her black friends are like, where the hell did you grow up? She knows nothing of black culture the way black kids understand culture.
Yep.
Even like I say, even the people that we're friends with in the neighborhood, they're like, they hang together. They're like, there's different cultural things that I love, but I don't know about them. I can pretend, like you can pretend to know about certain things, but until you're like that shit's ingrained in you. And I don't want her to have a disadvantage. But the point is, these people invite us to their churches. They invite it every time they throw a party. They're there and like they're my friends now. So they're having a tailgate party at the high school before the high school football game. The high school football team is really good. And the black families get together for a tailgate. And I'm at one of the games one time and I see one of the daughters of one of my friends, actually Rand Carthon, who's been on the show. He was the GM of the Titans. I see his daughter, who's a student at Ravenwood. And I'm standing up in the stands and I'm like, yo, where's your dad? And she's like, oh, he's outside at a tailgate. I'm like, what? I go, have you seen Derek Quarles? She's like, yeah, no, he's out there with him, my dad. And I'm pissed. I'm like, yeah, they had a tailgate party and they didn't invite me. Who the hell planned the tailgate party? And she looks at me, she goes, the black people? And I go, damn it. I said, I thought I was part of the gang. And she was, so then after that, I went out and told them the same story. So now they invite me to everything.
Oh, that's awesome.
They're awesome. I mean, this, I will tell you, like living in Nashville has been, I love living in Pacific Palisades and Malibu, but the people that have shown us love here is like, I'm getting emotional thinking about it. They've been so incredibly kind. And, if you look at any longevity and happiness study, all of the data suggests that your long-term health and wellness and everything that goes along with it is tied to your sense of community, your relationships. It's the most important overriding factor in living a quality life. And we have hit the jackpot living in Nashville with the people and friends that we have. And you're part of that. All my friends, all my people, like, I honestly, I feel like the luckiest person in the world with the friends that I have.
I mean, and that's been a huge part of your voyage, has been the community around you, whether it's people on the hockey team, people at the boxing gym, and and then also like in the swimming pool to just hop in and be like, hey, buddy, how do I do this?
Yeah.
It takes a certain amount of vulnerability and courage and chutzpah to just be like, hey, pal, can you show me? Can you teach me?
What you realize is like, what is someone going to do? Be like, F you? And guess what? If they do take that aggressive, nasty approach with me, I typically am like, well, at least I don't have to waste time trying to talk to that guy again. And look, I'm not always the nicest guy in the world. If people ask me to help them with something, I might be like, can't help you, buddy. I'm busy with my own shit. But one thing you get used to is if you're, like I said earlier, if you're afraid to take shots, you're not going to score goals. And the worst thing that can happen when you ask someone for help is they say no. And who cares? You move it right along. I didn't know you before I asked, and I will never know you again now. So see you later. But when you do show honesty and interest and vulnerability and like sincerity to people, you might meet some of your closest friends in the world. And I have been lucky that at this stage of my life, and I'll be 55 in May, I've never been in a better place with relationships. I have dozens of friends that I genuinely love. I don't have a problem telling people that I love them. I'm like, I don't know. I love people that love me. So if someone says, but you get guys like friends like Mike Posner, who's like super spiritual and always be like, I love you, man. And it like really, as you get older, especially growing up the way I grew up in the inner city with tough guys, no one really talks like that. So when someone does, I'm like, I don't view it as weakness at all. I'm like, man, this guy has real strength of character.
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of guts to tell guys you love them. But now I'm like to the point where like, yeah, I love everyone. If I love someone, I'm like, hey, man, I love you. And I like when, especially with my tough guy friends, they're seeing how uncomfortable it makes them. Because then they're like, do I say I love you too? Which, no, you don't have to.
When you start hammering marathons, you go so deep into the strategy and the sort of little mind games that you do. And I think that there's two things that I want to ask you about, and the first is you would die before you would cheat.
Yeah.
But within those lines, you're like, it's the same distance race. I'm just going to make sure I'm in this corral instead of the other one.
100%.
Talk about how that has manifested in your life and maybe might manifest in other people's lives.
Yeah, you need to understand the rules of the game. And like what you're talking about is like understanding, like if a race course is winding around, right? You want to be like cutting as close as you can to each corner. You don't want to be running an extra 10, 20 yards every time the course turns, because then you're adding on like 400 meters, a lap of the track. That's like a minute and a half. It's the best analogy or example would be in a triathlon. When you get out of the water and you're running to change from swim to bike, there's no reason that the professional athletes should be able to run through there and put their shoes on faster than you. To me, that was always free time. So to your point about strategizing, it's like, yeah, I knew exactly where my bike was going to be. I knew exactly how I was going to get there the fastest without getting caught up in minutia. I was going to get there, do what I had to do, get out of there as quickly as I can. Obviously all within the bounds of the rules, but like understanding all the rules and knowing what you're doing is a big part of it. And the same thing with at the start line. we all have to be in this corral, but I don't have to be 50 people behind the start line. I'm going to make sure that I'm standing on the start line or as close to it as I can. Matter of fact, in the Tokyo Marathon, normally later in my career, when I had some faster marathon times, you can qualify to race in the first corral, like the very first group of people on the start line. But for whatever reason in Tokyo, they were like, no, you're in like the C corral, like thousands of people back. So I was like, man, screw this. I'm going to get in the C, and I'm just going to eventually, when they separate, like eventually you're all separated by ropes, then they drop the ropes and it all kind of crowds together, but only for like a minute or two. Well, when they drop that, I just kind of like wiggle my way as far forward as I can before the gun goes off. And the crazy thing is, in Tokyo, the gun goes off, and it was the furthest back from the start line I'd ever been, and I'm probably 10 people deep. But this is like across like a 4-lane highway in Tokyo. There's tens of thousands of people. The gun goes, and we had to be up there for like at least an hour before the race started. So everyone's standing there. People had like plastic bags that they were peeing in and then dumping it on the side. People had blankets that they wrap around themselves, pee in a cup, and then throw like, there was no place to pee, and you hydrate, you're ready to run a marathon. So, and it's like the crazy thing is, it's like a community. So people would hold up the blankets so someone else could pee. The girls would be squatting down with other girls holding the blankets, and it was cold. So race goes off, and sure enough, all you can hear is that sound of elbows and knees smashing the ground. And it looks like when a wave crashes and white water kicks up, and all of a sudden you just see ankles and feet up at where the heads are supposed to be, and people just toppling in the crush of tens of thousands of people coming behind you. And you're just like, man down, and everyone's scrambling and jumping and, getting out of there. I just remember thinking how quickly things can go sideways. You fly all the way to Tokyo, and someone trips you with their trash bag that they're wrapped up in trying to stay warm, and now they're just going to throw it down on the ground carelessly. That's the other thing that drives me crazy. Is you go to those races and people are just like, I'm only concerned about my own shit. I'm going to like drink this bottle and drop it straight down on the ground so someone steps on it and breaks their ankle or falls down.
I feel like there's another life lesson too in how hard you perform, the challenges you set yourself, and then, a race like that New York Marathon you did with where you met Neve Schulman,
Neve.
where Neve.
Yeah.
And it was not your best day. It was not your best race. You had thoughts about like, I'm not going to show up, or I got my Metro card so I can get home. And you had an incredible day.
Yeah, that was a crazy race. Again, I was super lucky that I had qualified to race in like the local elite category, which is basically like the next step after the pros. And in that crowd, they also include like a handful of celebrities who, instead of a number, they have their name on it, which was always my dream, to have my name on my bib instead of my number. So if someone from New York Roadrunners is watching and wants me to run like ceremonial, like I'd love to be a celebrity runner.
I'm saying we still need to do the Rideout merch, which is on the back. It's just a target with your name.
That's a good one. So I'm standing there, and I don't know if I even recognized him, but obviously anyone who's read the book, I don't take anything to the start line except my race kit, shoes, maybe 2 gels, and I'll have some old clothes on typically. And I think I had a flannel shirt and like some corduroy pants, because I was like, I'm just going to get warm, and then I'm going to shit can these when the race starts. So I'm standing there with Neve, and like I said, I don't think I recognized him, and we were just chit-chatting, and I was like, oh, what are you trying to run? And he's like, we were talking, and I go, oh, I'm assuming he's in the local elite. I'm like, what are you trying to run? He's like, man, I'd love to get under 3 hours. And I was like, oh, nice. And he's like, what about you? I said, man, I'd love to get under 2.5 hours. I ran 2:29 in London recently. And he was like, what? Oh, my God. And I'm like, dude, aren't you in the like local elite category? He's like, no, I got a special thing in there. I host a TV show. And then I'm like, oh my God, I love that show. He hosts Catfish on MTV, but he made an awesome documentary called Catfish. And my wife loved the show. I mean, she loves Neve. Neve's just like one of those really nice guys. He was on Dancing with the Stars. Like, women love him, guys like him. He's just a cool guy. And I'm like, oh, dude, I know that show. I was like, my wife is a huge fan. He's like, send her a picture. I'm like, how the fuck am I going to send a picture? I'm like, I don't have my phone with me. He's like, you don't have a phone with you? I'm like, dude, we're about to race in a marathon. Why would I carry my phone 26 miles like that, even that little bit of extra weight? And he was like, oh my God, this guy, looking at me like, this guy's crazy. So he goes, here, I have my phone. Let me take a picture. I'll text it to her. I'm like, like this guy's like on TV. He wants to text my wife his phone number. Like, all right, cool. Text it to her. So he sends the picture. Hey, met your husband at the start line. It's Neve. Of course, my wife's like, oh, none of this surprised me. That's like on brand for what Ken would do. Because I think like the week before I sent the video to my kids out of the Clear Blue from Julian Edelman, who was a superstar for the Patriots. We were at a Sports Illustrated swimsuit party in New York with Neve. And Julian Edelman takes my phone. He's like, hey, Jack, Cameron, and Luke, I'm here with your pops. You guys are a bunch of Boston guys. I'm going to crack you when I see you. Take it easy, fellas. And my kids are just like, they're like huge sports fans, right? They're like, oh my God, aside from Brady, like they couldn't have been happier. So my wife gets crazy messages like this all the time. Not necessarily like that, but I call her and tell her crazy shit all the time. So we take off running, and I had a calf injury going into like a really bad, basically my calf muscle like was locked in a spasm. Like it tightened, the muscle contracted and just would not let go. And it hurt on a scale of 1 to 10, like a 15. And it sounds minor and like should be easy fix, but the muscle wouldn't let go, just overused. And I had been doing therapy twice a day with physical therapists, massage, everything. And so on race day, I had it all taped up with kinesio tape, but I brought a Metro card with me because I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to make this. And if I can't finish, I'll at least jump on a subway. But start running, and I feel like shit. Some races you feel magical, you're floating, it's all clicking, and you're doing your best to hold yourself back. This race, it was like I was working as hard as I could to run my conservative pace. And, it starts with a mile uphill run on the Verrazano Bridge into like freaking vicious wind always. And around mile 4, it was like magic. My calf muscle just let go. The muscle released. And I was like, oh my God, the pain's gone. But now I'm in hell because I'm just dying. I had run London maybe 4 weeks before, and it just wasn't enough time to recover. I didn't have the experience that I had years later. But I did the best that I could, and I got to the finish line, and coming up to finishing straight in Central Park, and I'm about maybe 100 yards, 200 yards from the finish. And now it's crowded, right? At the finish of the New York Marathon. It's crowded everywhere in the New York Marathon, but the finish line is packed. And a small cheer starts to go up in the crowd, like a small roar of like, yeah. And I'm like, what the hell? I know they're not cheering for me. Like this, I'm not crazy. And I'm finishing with like, there's a few people behind me, in front of me. I'm finishing in like 2 hours and 33 minutes. So I'm still far enough in the front where it's not like massive humanity crossing the finish line. Like it's people are crossing one at a time. And they're cheering, and I just look around, and I see Shalane Flanagan closing on me. And Shalane had previously won the New York Marathon, but because of COVID, this is 21, because of COVID, all the marathons had been canceled, postponed, whatever.
I remember.
So in the course of like, no shit, like 4 or 5 weeks, every single major marathon was held. And Shalane ran them all in like, honestly, in a month. I think it was a month. I'm sure like someone can fact check me. There were 6 major marathons within 4 to 6 weeks, and Shalane ran them all. But she wasn't obviously trying to run to win. She would kill me. I think she ran like 2:15 or something in my best in New York, and I ran 2:33. So, she was 20 minutes ahead of me, basically. But as I see her coming, I'm like, oh, hell no, like my insecurity kicked in. But to be fair, even if it was a guy, no matter who it was, I'd be like, I'm not letting anyone sprint past me. And I start sprinting like a friggin' maniac, arms and legs everywhere. My muscles are all cramped. And I must have looked like a nut. Crossed the finish line, boom, practically collapsed, throwing up. Just a mess. And for some reason, they didn't post the results. Like when I went to bed, I couldn't see where I finished in the age group or in the Masters division, which I hadn't even considered. The Masters is 40 and over. I was 51 at the time. But I hadn't considered that I could even have a fighting chance at the Masters title because previous winners were like Olympic champions like Meb Keflezighi, Abdi Rahman, like some of the best runners in the world turned 40, ran this race and ran like 2:12, right? I ran 2:33. But in the morning, I wake up from a text from my friend Amar Kuchinad, who also I worked with at when I moved to LA. I was working at a financial technology firm that Amar started. So, I get a text from Amar saying, "Dude, congrats! You're the Masters champion in New York City." And I was like, "I won the age group, but that's not the Masters division technically." And I go online, I'm Googling, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I won my age group, nice." And then I'm like, "Wait a minute." I fucking won the whole, I won all the age groups over 40. I mean, it paid like $4,000 or $5,000. And I was like, oh my God, I was on cloud nine that day. I was so happy because everything was over and it was just like an unexpected bonus. And I was happy. Still, when I think about it now, it like really makes me feel good.
Let's talk about Onsite.
Yeah.
Because for me, without Onsite, there's no book.
Yeah.
Because like up to that point, it's like you'd covered thousands and thousands of miles in the flesh, but your head hadn't kept up, and then you had like a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah.
It sounds like a pretty brutal experience that you went through there.
Yeah, physically it wasn't hard, but emotionally it was very difficult. Onsite is Onsite workshops in Cumberland Furnace, Tennessee, outside of Nashville, and it's they call it a trauma healing center, but it's basically a 5-day inpatient, intense psychotherapy facility. And there's group programs and individual programs. You do a lot of work with a big group of like 40 people, and then I was in an individual intensive where I was just with a therapist for probably 6 hours a day, maybe a little more. Maybe 6 hours with her and then 3 or 4 hours with the groups. And yeah, I was basically at that point, I was essentially a sober addict. I was not taking drugs, but I was still had the mindset of an addict. And I was like, my marriage was not good. And it was like all things that could be fixed, which was so frustrating. A lot of times in relationships, we let our egos get the best of us. And you think about it, it's like it all stems from ego. You feel offended, you feel slighted. So then you don't give. I'm not getting as much intimacy as I want, so I'm withholding emotional support, and it's like sometimes subconscious, sometimes very conscious, and it's like a vicious cycle where I'm like, if I give her everything she needs, I know I get what I need and want, and vice versa. But we weren't getting there, and I was like, I refuse to let this fizzle and fall apart without going down swinging. And the thing is, what I hope people take from this is, when you start trying to fix other people and get people to do what you want and get them to behave the way you want them to, you are fighting a losing battle. And I have always had enough self-awareness to know my problem with you isn't you, it's me. I love my wife, so, and I know she loves me, but I was like, I want to strangle you because you're not giving me what I want. And I realized I have to think about this from a practical standpoint. If I'm selling you something and I want you to buy it, I need to convince you that like I'm trustworthy and you want to buy it. And what I did was just say to myself, like, how can I get her to give me what I want? Because when I get what I want, my marriage is great. And long story short, I knew I'm not going to get her to change. I can't make her go to Onsite to fix my problem. So I went there and it changed my life. And it was just a massively reflective exercise of looking at all your behavior, looking at what led to the behavior, trying to understand what caused it, and trying to get to the root cause of whatever's ailing you. And it's not easy because no one wants to go there and be like, yeah, hey, I'm fucked up. Here's the things I'm doing wrong. And sometimes you don't even know. Like I went there and thought like, well, I don't have any trauma. And she's like, anyone who went through that shit would have some like emotional damage that they have to like resolve. Doesn't mean you're a victim to go there and identify like, hey, this happened to me. The hard thing is a lot of times people don't even realize what's bothering them. They just know that something is bothering them. And I basically said, I'm not going to live like this. Like with addiction, I'm like, I'm going to take control of this and figure out why I feel like this and how do I get to the bottom of it. And I did. And I went there and it sucked. And, I get there, they take my phone, they give me the key to the cabin that I'm staying. The place was very nice. Like the facilities were, it wasn't like the Four Seasons, but it wasn't a campground. It was nice. And I get to this little cabin I'm staying in. It looked like a nice hotel. Like there was separate cabins with like, let's say 4 room/suite things. And I get there and I'm thinking I have my own room, and I get there and there's like 3 double beds in like a quaint cottage thing. And I'm like, what the hell? I don't want to spend the next 5 days with 3 grown men. Like, I don't want to be, I don't even like being around some of the people I'm friends with for that long. I don't want to be with strangers. But that's all part of the process. And I went back and was like, I think there's a mistake. I specifically asked for my own room. And she's like, no, we don't have our own rooms here. Like, it's not a mistake. And ended up being the greatest thing. I met one of my like dearest friends in the world, Eric Decker, who was the only reason I mentioned him and talk about is because I've talked to him about, is he okay with me sharing the fact that that's where we met, and he's good with it. But man, what a sweet guy. And well,
that's one of the things that I found with this is that like you are able to take advantage of this like fellowship of men, that like you seem to thrive in AA and just that that connection with a fellow addict.
Yeah. And Eric Decker, if you don't know, was insane football player, played in the Super Bowl with Denver. He played in Denver for years, then the Jets and then the Titans, like super handsome guy. I'm like, I've said so many times, I'm like, fucking life is so unfair. I'm like, you get to be like 6'4", a superstar athlete, like a really nice guy. And the crazy thing is we're at Onsite and he's like, working out his own shit. And he's like, I need to be happier. I'm like, dude, what? You have everything to be happy about. And he's like, so do you. And I was like, fair point.
One of the things to me that is a trademark of childhood trauma is the inability to perceive where we stand in relationship to other people. Yeah. Like, I can envy your life, but I can't recognize that my life is worth envying. And the other thing is whenever I hear the words, hey, other guys had it worse, that's always a huge flag to me that whoever's like saying, it's not a big deal. There's something there, that people are trying to cover up or trying to escape.
Yeah. But it was the experience was eye-opening. But I will tell you this, it's like anything else. It's like if you're looking for a magic cure or a magic answer, it's not that. It's you go there and it's like the first week of sobriety and then you've got to do the work when you leave. It's a never-ending process, unfortunately. And that's not, I don't say that to be a deterrent, but I'm just telling you, if you think you're going to go there and leave a different person, like nothing's going to do that to you. No psychedelic trip, no DMT experience. Did we write about DMT in the book?
No, but we should have. We'll do that in the next one.
Yeah. Well, I did smoke DMT one time. Like, I'll post a story about it at some point down the road, but that was an eye-opening experience. And again, something like Onsite that was so profound, but without follow-up, it slowly dissipates like anything else and it becomes ineffective. The key to all this stuff is to like, integrate that into your day-to-day life and implement some of the practices you learned. But again, dude, this is all part of the process. Like, we're learning all the time, and I'm learning and figuring this stuff out. And I wish it was easy for me, and I could be like, no, here's what you do. You go do this. Then the next thing you know, you're on cloud 9, and you're the happiest guy at your church, and everyone's looking for you for spiritual guidance. That's not how it works. For me, it's a constant struggle. But I did an interview once with Lance Armstrong, and I was telling him, I went to Onsite, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I just came back from a tune-up. Like, you'd be shocked at the people. Like, I mean, I don't want to tell anyone else's business, but like I've introduced some like mega famous people to this place. And I'm not trying to be like a dick, like, I got mega famous friends, but I told some like really like big name actors, musicians about it. And they're like, yeah, I signed up. I went last week.
Yeah. Everybody needs help, man.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the hardest race in the world. And we can't talk about this race without sort of how you got into it, your on-ramp into it. We got to talk about our brother, Rich Roll. How did you meet Rich? Tell us about your friendship with Rich.
My spiritual guru / advisor, Mr. Richard Roll.
Yes.
Rich Roll was introduced to me by literally one of my closest friends in the world, a guy who I love like as much as I could love a family member, and that's Rob Moore, who produces Andrew Huberman's podcast. Rob produces my podcast. If Rob told me he needed a friggin' kidney tomorrow, I'd give him both. Like, he's my dear friend. And having those kind of relationships makes all the difference in the world. And it's strange because people will call me and be like, everybody wants to be in business with Huberman and they know we're friends. And they're like, hey, ask Rob if he'll do that, do this, do that. And I'm like, dude, Rob is my friend, but Rob does not mix business and friendship. Meaning, he has no problem being like, absolutely not. Even if I'm like, it would be a big favor for me, he's like, no, we're not doing that. And you could easily be like, what the F? Rob didn't do that for you? I'm like, Rob is his own man. He does what he does. If I told him I needed a kidney and he could do it, he'd give you one. but he'd give me one. But
Yeah.
if I told him I needed Huberman to promote a product, he'd be like, no, can't do.
Yeah.
Like, and that's why I respect and love him. Anyway, Rob and I trained, we moved coincidentally. We met when we both moved from New York to LA. He was working in big PR agency. I was working on a trading desk, and now we're both in New York trying to figure out our own way, and both like in massive transition periods in our lives. But he's an insane athlete. He did a sub 9 hour Ironman. He won the Huntington Beach Marathon the year after I finished second there. The year I moved from LA, I won the Malibu half marathon. The year I left in like 20 or 21, Rob won it in 22. Almost in like within 10 seconds of my time. We have been like neck and neck in so many races. So we were training out there, and Rich had been obviously a big ultra athlete, and Rob was friends with Rich through just PR. And Rob's a hustler, man. He's just like, in a lot of ways, we're very similar. He knows a lot of people. People respect him. He values relationships, and he has a lot of them. I mean, we trained hundreds of miles a week on our bikes. On Saturday and Sunday, we'd ride 50 to 100 miles every single day with Jack, the guy who from the Palisades. And all of these guys are savage athletes. Like, we will ride like maybe a step behind like where a professional tour rider would ride. Like, it wouldn't be uncommon for us to train with guys like Cam Worth. In my 2 years in a row, the Tour of France winner lived in my neighborhood, and I'd see them training all the time and jump in and like ride with them for a little while. Geraint Thomas and Chris Froome. I mean, this was hardcore cycling. And if people weren't hardcore, they're like, hey, can I come ride with you? You know, we'd go along PCH and turn up like Latigo Canyon, and like within a mile, you'd be like, what happened to your friend? I'm like, I told him we're training.
Yeah.
So Rob and I, and you know, when you're riding for 4 or 5 hours every day with someone, you get to become very close. And then we would travel to races together. Rob's like one of the only guys in the world. If we were going somewhere together, if I was with any other guy and was, you know, Rob's like me, wants to stay in the nice place, we would, he'd be like, oh, did you reserve your room with Rob? He's the only guy where I'd be like, oh, we'll just share a room. Like, there's no sense in buying two. Like, he's like, that's the kind of relationship we have. But I don't have to talk to him for like I might not talk to him for a month.
Yeah.
And then be like, hey, what's up? Oh, okay. I always tell him his new kid is my god kid. I'm like, how's my goddaughter? But anyway, he introduced me to Rich, and for the longest time was like, Rich, you got to have this guy on your pod. You got to have this guy on your pod when I first moved to LA. And Rich was just like crickets, wouldn't even respond to the emails. I'm like, then I started to get resentful. I'm like, F this guy. And then I met him, and Rob convinced him to have me on the podcast. Then when I met him, he's like, no, man, I was following your stuff and on Strava and Instagram. And I was like, I'm not going to rut train with this guy. He's a fucking nut. He's like, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm giving off that kind of energy. I don't feel like that. I don't train with people and then just try and destroy them. I love the camaraderie of training. So did the episode with him. And then about a year later, a friend introduced me to Scott DeRue, who at the time was the president of Equinox, had previously been the dean of Michigan Business School, like very accomplished, like executive, and was into running and mountain climbing and training. And he said he was doing this Gobi March in Mongolia, which I had never heard of. He's describing it to me, and I love exotic travel and doing like interesting races, but it really has to like speak to me to get my attention. And he's telling me about it, and I'm just like, dude, I bet you I can win that race. And he's like, well, you know, but he was probably thinking I called you to get advice, not to invite you to do a race with me. And long story short, I sent an email to the race director. They said, you're in. The race was in like 4 or 5 weeks, and I did everything I could to get ready in that short window. I was running with different backpacks. I'd stuffed them full of towels and bottled water to like simulate the 20 pounds roughly that I knew I needed.
Yeah.
You had to carry all your own supplies of food, everything you needed except water. And they would give you you could sleep in a tent that they'd put up, but you need a sleeping bag, extra clothes, and food for a week. So, you know, I'm burning like 10,000 calories a day on the high end, but I only have 2,500 a day predetermined of, you know, MREs, like freeze-dried food, that you would add hot water and it would, you know, turn into food.
The thing that's so crazy to me about Gobi is that this whole time you had your eye on the Marathon Masters. Was it the Marathon Majors,
the World
Masters Division?
World Marathon Majors, which is a series of races that consists of Boston, New York, Chicago, Tokyo, Berlin, and London. Those are the world major, those are the Marathon World Majors. And Abbott Labs is the sponsor. So it's called the Abbott World Marathon Majors. And they have an age group world championship kind of race within a race for athletes ages 40 and over, and it goes in 5-year increments, 40 to 44, 45 to 49. You have to qualify to get into that race. And so at each race, you sign up for the Boston Marathon, and you register for the Abbott. It's free. You register for the Abbott age group race, and you get points. So once you get a certain amount of points, and I don't know what the system is, but if you win your age group in Boston, you automatically qualify for the world championship race, which moves every year. In this particular year, in what I say, 23. So yeah, 23 was in Chicago. But in 21, I had registered for the London Marathon, and coincidentally, it was the age group world championships, and I had qualified at CI, California International, where I ran 228. That had qualified me for the age group world championships in London, unbeknownst to me. So I signed up I think I then signed up for London. I don't think I signed up because it was the world championships, but either way, I'm going to run the London Marathon, and it also happens to be the age group world championships. And I thought oh, who knows? Maybe I could win this, but I didn't seem that realistic. It wasn't I wasn't completely preoccupied, I'm going to win the world championships, but there was a part of me that was oh shit, maybe I can win this.
Yeah.
So when I get to London, I get to the race course, and we have special numbers to designate us in this field. And we have the numbers that pin on the front and back of us so you can see who's in your age group. And we had our own distinct start area. So the race starts with 3 distinct start corrals. But unlike New York, where they're all over the bridge above, below, these are several blocks away from each other for logistical reasons, just because there's so many people. And the 3 areas start at the same time, and then around 3 miles, they merge together on one road. So you can't see the other areas. But I know that all the people in my area are in the age group world championships in different age categories, but everyone's marked what category they're in. So I'm standing on the start line. I just kind of bully my way up there. And when the gun goes off, we take off. And, you always get a couple maniacs that sprint like a friggin' lunatic out front, which drives me crazy because I'm you have no business being up here. And God forbid you trip and fall and clean someone out, just to say I was leading for a minute. It's just running on the field, being a streaker at the Super Bowl. You're look at me. And I'm dude, get out of the way. People trying to get shit done here. It's sort of fucking clown time. And, take off, and within a mile, I'm leading. So now I know no one in my age group is in front of me. And around 3 miles, we merge. And now you're merging with people that are running the same pace. At that point, I'm running a 5:25. I'm running a 2:25 pace. Well, I'm running fast, 5:40, 5:30 a mile. So we merge. So there's people obviously in front of me, pro runners and different. There was a college category. So there are some good runners. But when I tell you, I can see 5 people in front of me. And when I look back, there's 3 people behind me. It's so spread out because this is where people are running fast. And so I'm going along, throughout the course of the race, when you're running that fast after 4 miles, it's not unless you start to fall apart or start picking it up and other people falling apart, you're not passing more than 20 people, and more than, unless you're struggling, 5 or 10 people aren't passing you. So you're locked in. I mean, you can see the same person for 20 miles if you're running the same pace and you're consistent. So coming into the finish, and I'm I'm getting close to finish. I know it's going to be really close to be under 2:30, which is what I desperately wanted to do. I'd only done it once before when I ran 2:28 in Sacramento. So I see that I'm this is going to be close. So I start stepping on the gas. And now I could have gone harder, but I want to get there under 2:30, and I'm trying to be strategic with the time because to me, I'm winning. I'm going to win. Yeah. I don't want to go too hard and get passed and blow up. Cross the finish line, I'm fuck yes, 2:29 and change. I'm on cloud 9. I run back to the Four Seasons at Hyde Park Corner where I'm splurging to stay comfortable, grab my shit, and I'm racing to Heathrow. I'm on the plane 3 hours after the race finishes. And as I'm driving to the airport, I call my coach, Mario Fraioli, and who best coach in the world. And I'm hey, dude, I think I won the age group. And he's no, I'm looking at the results. You were second. And I'm no, dude, there's no way. Here's what this, it's impossible. And he's no, this dude is finished in first. I'm what? As it turns out, the guy was in a different start area. I know what he did. He knows what he did. But no one else is going to care. And he runs the first 3 miles in 5 minutes flat per mile, which is makes no. You're not going to run 5-minute flat per mile and then hang on to run 2:29 low. He beat me by less than a minute. But by doing that, he technically hadn't broken any rules because they didn't. It was a new category. They hadn't like etched it in stone. And the guy beat me and won the world championships. And I was like, oh. So when it came around again in Chicago, I knew what it was. I was ready to go. And I came into Chicago like locked in, ready to go, and ran 2:29 there. And, you know, like the story, I think it's the best story in the whole book about how the whole race played out. So I don't want to like relive it and spoil it for anyone that's going to read or listen to the book. But my whole life played out in the course of that race of just different analogies of not giving up, fighting to the last step, doing just enough to win. The two guys who I beat in Chicago, if I raced them 10 times, they're winning 9, no question. They had both run like 2:25 that year. 2:28's the fastest I'd ever run. And I ran 2:29 in Chicago to win. And that was...
Yeah, that one time you did.
Yeah. On that day, they couldn't beat me. I did everything I had to do. And
What's bananas to me about your showdown in Chicago is that you didn't mention to Shelby that this was the big enchilada.
I didn't intentionally not mention it to her. It's like, dude, my racing is like my business. And it's not like I keep it from her, but it's like she loves that I'm doing what I want to do. But like if I try to tell her like nuances of race, I'm like, here's what I'm going to do. She's like, I don't care about this. Like she cares because I care, but I'm not going to like, you know what I mean? I tell her, she knows I want to win every race. So it's not like I really want to win this race. I feel that about the turkey trot.
Yeah.
I'm like dialed in, you know, sleeping extra for the 3 nights leading up to the turkey trot, same way for Chicago. That race in Chicago, though, after London was in 21, going into 23, I went and won the age group in Tokyo. And then Chicago was that October, and in the middle is when I talked to Scott Theroux in around May, and he told me in June he was doing the Gobi March. And again, the Gobi March, the whole experience of being in the Gobi Desert in Mongolia is similar to like stories of my life. There's like a million different things played out in the desert, and it was crazy. And that's a story that people should definitely read or listen to in the book because I can't do it justice in like 2 minutes.
Yeah. 5 years ago, running was your escape. It was, something transformative. Like first it was punishment for you, and then it became something you enjoyed, and then you turned it into your job.
Yeah.
What's your relationship like with running these days? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I've really taken a big step back over the last 2 years. I've only run like one race a year just to keep myself honest. But a big reason for that was that exactly what you just described. It was starting to feel like a job, and it was starting to feel very performative, and I didn't want my life and existence to be tied to running. I'm more than a runner. Like it's almost insulting when people are like, oh, you're a runner. I'm like, dude, I'm not a runner. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm a friggin' full-time savage. Like I'm like doing everything. I have like multiple successful businesses. Like I'm doing it. Running is like, I used to practice guitar, and then I got a record contract, and now I'm like, by default, you become a musician, but it's like, I'm not just a runner. I run, but I'm not.
It's one of the things you do, not the one thing you do.
Exactly. And I did feel like I don't want to lose sight of the fact that this was a hobby and something that I was doing for myself, and I don't want it to be hijacked by others or by some crazy desire to feel validated. I don't need running to validate me, even though I do get caught up feeling like that. And, the last couple of years, I did some high rocks races, which I really enjoyed, which were transformative. I mean, you talk about hard, physically hard, to go from running all the time where I could get like relatively skinny, and then doing a high rocks. I remember when I was training for high rocks, I came out of the basement gym one day, and my wife and kids were in the kitchen, and my middle son was like, Dad, you got big muscles. And I did. I mean, I posted some content on Instagram where I was training for high rocks, and I look at them and I'm like, holy shit, I got muscles. But I never really lifted heavy weights for years while I was running all the time. And now I'm when I was training for High Rocks, I'm lifting weights like a savage and just sprinting. There was no zone 2 really. It was all like mad intensity.
One of the things that's really interesting for me, rereading this book after this journey that we've taken together is that I think you finally start to get it at the end that like you're your nemesis.
Of course.
That, the whole time you thought you were trying to beat these other runners or, and beating addiction was part of that. But at the end of the day, like, it's in so many different avenues. You have a boot on your own neck, What's your relationship like with Ken Rideout these days?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked that, because the whole goal in writing this book is really to kind of be an example to others, especially other men, and say, hey, here are some things. This isn't like me telling you, here's how you do it. Here's a tutorial. It's like, hey, here are some of the self-inflicted wounds, some of the shit that's been like, that I've had to deal with. Like I said, some of it's self-inflicted. And here's how I dealt with it. And more than what to do, it's how I thought about doing it and how I used mindset and this like fuck it attitude of like, dude, just get out there and start moving attitude. And that's what I'm hoping people get from it, and recognizing that we are our own worst enemies for everyone. Like, you're in a battle against yourself. You can create your own enemies, and you can tell yourself that other people are trying to kill you at a race, which is what I usually do. But at the end of the day, just like I talk about people who are looking to kill me, I tell you I have friends that would do anything to help me. At least I think they would. And I have friends that I'd do anything to help them. And if you can have a few people like that in your life, you're winning. But if you expect everyone to treat you the way you want to be treated and the way you would treat them, then you are being naive. The best thing, a lot of times people ask me, how do you have these friends? How did you build this network of friends? And I always say, the best thing that you can do to have good friends is be a good friend.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're a good friend, it can be feeling vulnerable because there are a lot of people out there that will take advantage of your kindness. And that's one of the skills you develop after living a long life, is you develop an ability to kind of see through bullshit. And I always tell my kids when they're dealing with any challenge in life, I'm like, listen to me. I know you think that I never went through what you went through. You think I'm old. But imagine if you could talk to someone that's been doing something that you want to do and they've been doing it for 30 or 40 years, how much they're going to know. That's what I'm trying to convey to you. It's like, I know how this plays out. I know if you don't do your homework and you F around and you spend too much time looking at your phone, I know what's going to happen. In life, you have to pay your rent. You have to pay your dues. You could pay them now or pay them later, but everyone's going to pay. And if you pay them now, your life can be really comfortable. If you pay them later, you could be paying over a very long time. Yeah. Don't take that road lined with the Candyland shit versus the road with the barbed wire and the like arrows. Take a few arrows right now, because at the end of the candy lane is bazookas.
Yeah.
And they don't discriminate.
Yeah.
Don't pay. You'll pay when you get there. At the end of that road, there's payment due. Take the hard road now, you pay all up front.
Yeah. Do you feel like you've eased up on yourself a little bit, that you're able to sort of like yourself a little more, have a little more empathy for yourself, have a little more generosity, or, for yourself?
The process of writing the book has definitely been a huge help in that process, but I would say I'm far from at the finish line. That's part of the journey that I'm on. And it's like, that's what I'm saying about be careful what you wish for, or watch out for like who you're admiring, recognizing that we're all in the same struggle. We're all on the same journey, trying to get to the same place. You can have wins along the way, but like very few people are in that state of nirvana that we all fantasize about. The sooner you realize that you need to figure out a way to enjoy today and the struggle, is the sooner your life will be much more fulfilling. And I don't profess to have the answers, and I don't always do it right, but I can tell you that the journey is where all the magic happens. It's not the finish line. I've been to the finish of a lot of races and had a lot of different types of success, relatively speaking. I don't get there and think like the work's done. I've done it. It's over. No, it's like on to the next one. But what you do accomplish in setting these challenges and achieving them is that you become calloused to the idea of giving up, of taking the easy road. You develop this skill for overcoming difficulty, and it does make everything a little bit easier. And where none of us are getting out of here alive. You got to figure out a way to enjoy the struggle.
Ken, thank you so much, my brother. This has been such a wild trip we've taken together, and it just feels so good to be here.
Well, thank you, brother. I love you.
I love you too.
Thanks for being with us, guys. I hope you enjoyed the book. And if you did buy the book, I want to tell you how much I love and appreciate you. Thank you. Boom. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. Please take a quick minute to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening. This is a new show, so subscribing makes a huge difference. Please also take a minute to give it a review and leave a comment on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. You can also subscribe and leave a comment on YouTube. Again, this is really important for us, especially now since we're just getting started. Please also check out all of our sponsors. They make the show possible, and honestly, I love and use every single product we talk about on the show. You can learn more about me, this podcast, and also find links to purchase my upcoming memoir at theothersideofhard.com. My new book is called Everything You Want Is on the Other Side of Hard, and it comes out March 10th, available everywhere you buy books. Or again, go into theothersideofhard.com. There's multiple links there where you can find all the retailers carrying the book. Thanks a lot for being with us, and we'll see you next week.